What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of the LAFB network. We got a live stream going on today. I mean, this is the biggest thing that we're promoting throughout the week, a little bit of last week as well. Just in case you don't know who we are, I'm Under the Side, one half of the This Side guys here, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the This Side guys, Mr. Tad This Side. And Tad, we talked about this earlier on. We're watching the Senior Bowl. Obviously, because of copyright restrictions, we can't actually show you the Senior Bowl. So just, make sure you have it tuned. It's exclusively on NFL Network. We're just going to give you our thoughts as the game goes along here. We are going to be joined by our good friends, one of the newer podcasts on the LAFB network, the Draft is in Session podcast. We got the guys, the co-hosts from that podcast. We got Will Decker and Jamal Madney. They're going to be joining us at some point during the broadcast today. Tad, Senior Bowl day is finally here. I know you're a draft junkie to the fullest extent. How excited are you with our live stream, with the Senior Bowl, with everything right now?
I mean, with everything, I am so excited. This is my very first live stream where I'm on camera. Usually I'm the one behind camera in my last job, so it's great to be here. I'm super excited to get started. So first off, before I jump into my thoughts on the Senior Bowl, I want to let all of our viewers know that if you want to, us to answer any questions, or if you have any suggestions or questions that you want answered, hop into the Facebook chat, the YouTube chat, put in your questions. I will be monitoring that as the day goes along. So we're here for you guys. We want to give you what you want. So let us know that, any questions you want answered. But no, I mean, Senior Bowl is great. I love it. It's the perfect in between, the championship games and the Super Bowl. It kind of keeps your football there. So I'm super excited for it. I've watched, I'm not exaggerating, maybe 13, 14 hours of tape over the last 2 days prepping for this. So I have notes. So I'm super excited to get started. But I'm very excited for this opportunity.
Yeah, should be good times. We got, game hasn't started just yet. We're still a little bit in commercial break sort of thing. So, give us a little bit of time here as sort of things start along. But yeah, literally all we're going to do is we're going to be watching the game. As soon as, we see things that we like, see things we don't like, we'll commentate on it. We may discuss some topics not Senior Bowl related. Obviously, we got the draft cast here, so we're going to be talking about a lot of other things. And hey, we talked about one of our co-hosts. We're going to add him to the stream right now. Will Decker, one of the co-hosts of the Draft is in Session podcast. Will, how are you, buddy? Really quick before you jump in, I love the jacket.
Had to come with the Niners gear, big Niners fan in here. But guys, I'm excited to do this.
I'm literally surrounded.
Yeah, you are side by side to your right and left of just Niners fans. But no, I'm interested in talking some Colts with you too, because I've got some opinions on who you guys may be able to take in the draft. Fellas, it's going to be a fun day of football. I've been following it along all week, and just a lot of names are standing out. So thank you for having me, man. This is going to be a really good draft evaluation for both Niners fans, Colts fans, Chargers, Rams, whoever you may be loving.
Yep, anything and everything in between. All 32 teams are there scouting, obviously. Got a lot of prospects to watch. Really quick, Will, obviously we brought this up earlier that you're one of the co-hosts of one of the newer podcasts on the LAFB network, the Draft is in Session podcast. Talk to us a little bit about what you talk about. I mean, we kind of have a general idea about what you guys are covering on the podcast, but go into it a little bit here about what you and Jamal, what you guys cover on a, weekly, bi-weekly basis, whatever it is with the podcast.
First and foremost, love the shout out. That's awesome. Draft is in Session is the podcast I do with my main man, Jamal Madney, who will be sliding through here at some point to say what's up. Basically, our goal is just to tie in the draft process with UCLA, USC-based prospects, as well as the entire draft class as well, and kind of tailor those needs to the Rams and the Chargers, because those are the teams that are within this area. So, for instance, we'll do a wide receiver breakdown, and big name this year is Drake London, right, from USC.
Of course.
We'll get into Drake London right away. We want to cater to the UCLA, USC fan bases. And then we got to talk about the other wideouts, too, your Chris Olaves, your Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilsons, things like that. So we try to put a local and a national outlook on the draft process. And it has been incredibly fun so far. We've had Ben Fennell from NFL Network come through to be one of our guests.
Nice.
We got a couple more guys lined up in the future that are going to be big names. Can't quite reveal them just yet, but stay tuned, man. Hit that subscribe button to LA Football Network as well. We are doing big things in the Los Angeles area, and we're going to be changing the game. So keep us in mind.
It's that old Hollywood adage, right? Keep them wanting more. So you don't want to reveal all your, surprises that you got in store. So that is awesome. And yeah, definitely, we got all the Twitter handles down below on the ticker. You got mine, Armor the Side 23. You got Tad's Tad the Side 94. You got our show handle, D Decide Guys. And of course, we got the co-host of the Drafters in Session podcast. We got Will's there, Will, LAFB Network, and Jamal's when he joins on LAFB Jams. So yeah, make sure you give us all a follow. We could drop in a lot of content, especially with the Super Bowl happening on LAFB Network. We got a ton of stuff coming up with the Rams and Bengals coverage there. Obviously, the draft's in session, so we got lots of, draft stuff with Senior Bowl articles, and we had guys at the East-West Shrine Bowl as well as the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. So, we have a guy at the Senior Bowl right now, too, Ivan Ben Roy. So, he's giving us great coverage. So, we got you covered on all fronts at LAFB Network. So, yeah, make sure you follow all those Twitter handles as well as, subscribe to LAFB Network as well. So we just had kickoff. So guys, we're officially going on here. And actually the guy who just took the kickoff here, Velus Jones Jr. I keep hearing about this guy being just an absolute burner, could be a deep threat in the NFL. What do you guys have on Velus Jones Jr.?
Man, so Velus Jones Jr., he started out at USC and then transferred to Tennessee.
Okay.
So he is an LA-based prospect. Very explosive guy, too. The clip that really stood out to me from Velus Jones, it wasn't even a receiving clip. It was just his blocking ability, which is valued at the NFL level. It was a kickoff return at SC before he made his way to Tennessee. And he is leading the way. I think it was Gary Bryant back there who was receiving it. And this dude put like 2 or 3 dudes straight on their backs. It was very impressive. What up, Madman? How we doing, brother?
What's up, guys?
Chilling,
intercepting
man.
Will's take here on Velus Jones Jr. But yeah, we definitely want to welcome in the other co-host of the Drafts in Session podcast, Mr. Jamal Madney. And what's going on, Jamal?
Great to see you guys, man. Excited to do this. We're going to be, talking football for 3 hours. Oh, man, have I died and gone to heaven, dude?
Not just football, but yeah, draft specifically. I know both of you guys obviously host the podcast. Will sort of went into, what you guys cover on the podcast. It's awesome that we have another podcast on the network as well as a draft-centric one. So it's really awesome to have both of you guys here talking about the Senior Bowl. Guys, we got Malik Willis in the game as the starting quarterback here for the American team. He's one of those big names, obviously, as we were coming into the season, the transfer from Auburn, coming to Liberty here. There's a lot of talk about him possibly being the first quarterback taken. He had an up and down season, obviously, but it's just like, guys, what are your initial thoughts on Malik Willis? I think it's pretty safe to say he'll probably go in the first round, but, talk to me against that possibly. Is his stock dropping, or let's kick it a tad first. Let's kick it a tad here first.
So the thing that it stuck out to me the most when I was watching this tape is, oh my God, his offensive line at Liberty was awful.
Terrible.
They let everything past him. So I think that's what led to his up and down season. So I don't blame most of his struggles on him, but his mobility, I'm a little concerned about that translation. So it's more about him as a passer, but I actually really like his pocket awareness, right? His calmness in the pocket. He doesn't freak out and just run around like a madman and try to force passes. He's really calm in the pocket. So I like Kenny Pickett better, but I definitely understand why he's getting some QB1 attention. Now, I will say this. I think looking at practice tape and everything else, unless he absolutely screws this up in the game, he's about to take a snap. It's a handoff, so it doesn't matter. So I think unless he absolutely screws up this game, he is by far the biggest winner, because from everything I've read, he has nailed every interview. The teams are in love with him. He might be the Texans' pick. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see his ascension in the draft this year.
I think Davis Mills would like a word, Tad, before we start talking about Malik Willis to Houston Texans. But, Will, I know you had some thoughts here on Malik Willis. Let's sort of jump into you here.
I love the guy, honestly. I thought coming into our quarterback episode I did with my man Jamal, we had Ben Fennell, and he did have a rough year at Liberty, no doubt. But like you said, Tad, the O-line was depleted, and that is a nice way of saying that. O-line, that O-line was horrific.
You have kind of
O-line right now is looking at that, going, "Oh man, like it's nice to see another quarterback that doesn't have any help in front of him," because it's unreal. But the thing that I really like about him, you throw on the tape, and some of the throws he's able to make with his arm talent, I've just never seen those throws outside of a guy like maybe Mahomes or a Herbert. This guy he's in the 1% of arms. He's in that Josh Allen, Mahomes, Herbert type of arm talent there. You add the mobility. He just ran for a first down. We saw in our game about 8-9 yards. Tad, I want to talk to you, man, because you're a Colts fan. You guys are going to be picking in the middle of the first round. Carson Wentz is probably not the answer long term.
No. We're not picking in the middle of the first round. You got to remember we lost our first round pick.
Oh, I totally forgot. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I burned you on that one.
That was the outlier that wasn't sure that we would reach. So I believe it was 75%. If Carson Wentz played 75% of games this season, we lost our first round pick. So we had
that's absolutely true. Yeah,
it was the Jaguars' loss, right? That prevented it from happening.
Will, just to throw salt on the wound here, it's the Jaguars' bookend losses. They opened with the Jaguars loss, and then they finished the season with the Jaguars loss. But we'll stop it there because it's obviously we're talking about the Senior Bowl here.
It's a fun live stream. I'll see you guys after the game. It's fun.
My apologies, man. But hey, if he somehow is able to be available in the second round, even a guy like Pickett, one of these big name quarterbacks, there's not going to be a quarterback that's selected really near the top 10, top 15. You mentioned the Texans taking Malik Willis.
You don't think Pickett's going to go top 10?
No, I don't. I don't see it. He did not have a good week at the Senior Bowl as well. For my money, I would say that there's going to be some quarterbacks around in the second round. Maybe it's not Malik Willis after the week he had, but if there's a Kenny Pickett, a Sam Howell, some guys like that, would you be open to a pick?
You think Pickett's going to fall to the second round potentially?
I think there's a real chance of that happening. Yeah. I don't think he's a runaway prospect. I think the Steelers would present the biggest threat to maybe taking him there. But outside, if he moves past the Steelers, I think there's a chance he could dip into the second round.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Will said in terms of just Willis first. I'm not as high on this guy. I think that we sort of fall in love. Every year we do the same thing with the draft. Because the quarterback is the hardest position in all of sports. And there's like 8 guys who do it at an elite level. And then there's another 10 guys who are sort of average, and even being average gets you 100 million because it's such a hard position. And then there's 14 teams that, are looking for a quarterback every minute of the day. Willis for me is, physically obviously very gifted, but so is Jamarcus Russell. So is Jalen Hurts. So is, we can go on with the list. Greatness isn't, in basketball shorts and in combine drills. All we have on this guy from a tape standpoint is, let's take the offensive line away. He had 3 interceptions against Ole Miss. He had 3 interceptions against Louisiana Monroe. Against any semblance of elite competition, he crumbled. And so we can sort of talk about how well he does in interviews and how well he throws the deep ball in basketball shorts and all of those things. But until you can sort of prove it in a game situation, he's a project, okay? In much the same way Trey Lance is going to be viewed as a project with the Niners. So what teams can afford to, have a project over the next 2 or 3 years? That's really the question. And it has to be the right environment with the right quarterback coaching and so forth. So it's not really a slam dunk for me. I think he can find the right home because he is physically very gifted, but it's got to be the right situation in the right time. And on the Pickett situation, this year's quarterback class is a little bit weak. When you really kind of turn on the tape and you really look at, what's underneath the hood, I really like Pickett. He's such a polished passer. Those deep balls, the fades, the ball is just a beautiful parabola. And he has that characteristic that I really like, where he took a 6-win Pitt team and turned them into a New Year's 16. And if you look at the NFL MVPs of the last 10 years, what's the one common denominator? When you look at Mahomes and Rodgers and Matt Ryan and Cam, and we can go on and on the list. Yeah, some love to throw, some love to run. Lamar Jackson. The one common denominator is they took non-traditional college football schools that were 5-6 win teams and made them 10-win teams. It's not the guys at the blue chip schools. It's the guys at the non-traditionals that can make those programs great. And I think that's what Pickett has going for him. Having said that, I think unless it is a team like the Steelers, he's probably, late first round.
I agree. I would push back real quick on that, though, with Malik Willis. Do you know what Patrick Mahomes' record was in college?
Yeah, it was probably close to 500.
I 13 and 16 when he was starting. So, I mean, it wasn't great, but, this guy has been heralded as the guy, moving forward. And Malik Willis didn't have a lot of help. He's been the best quarterback in camp, finally surrounded by some big-name players. We'll see what happens. I like the take on Malik, but I do think there is some talent there that you just can't teach with the kid. And you do have to find that Andy Reid to, nurture Patrick Mahomes and an example. But I do think there's a chance that if Malik Willis goes to the right system, this could be a home run pick because I really believe in the talent that he has. And
just to echo something that Jamal said too.
And Amar, I'll let you take it from there. Yeah. The one counter on the Mahomes piece there, Will, he threw for 746 against Oklahoma. Okay, so for my money against a blue blood top 5 program, he went for 746 yards. So that right there on the field tells me that guy was a baller.
Yeah.
Well, it's also easy as throw for 746 when you never hand it off because Tech was an air raid offense. Like if you're throwing 50 times a game, that's it's impressive, but it's a little less impressive.
Yes, the biggest thing is I just want to echo that Jamal brought this up earlier. Just with this quarterback class, it seems like nobody is the clear-cut favorite. I think there's a lot of competition to see who's going to be that first quarterback taken. But I think we're all in agreement here that all of these guys, they need to be in the right situation because they're all going to be those project players that I think one of you guys brought up earlier. So they're not going to be in ready day one starters. There may take some time. Unfortunately, if they get drafted really early, they may have to be forced into a situation where they have to start early, kind of like Davis Mills, where the Houston Texans had Tyrod Taylor. He got hurt. He got thrown to the Wolves there. He actually looked okay at times. There was obviously a lot of growing pains that you have to go with him, but I think it's a very similar situation with this draft class that there may be guys that may be a little bit more prepared, and so it's not going to be so terrible to throw them out early, but I think we're all in agreement that these guys are, project players that they're all ready to make that step to the NFL. They just need to A, land in the right situation, and B, they need to have patience to continue. The coaching staff needs to have patience that this guy may not be ready to go day one. They need some time to develop. So we got a lot of quarterbacks here, guys. We definitely want to space out the quarterback talk here. I love the conversation.
More quarterback talk. There's no such thing as quarterback talk.
It'll come up. We got a lot of great quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl today. We obviously brought up Pickett. He's going to come in at some point today. Tad, he was talking to me before we started the broadcast about Bailey Zappi, the guy out of Western Kentucky.
I love him.
So he's going to be an interesting prospect to talk about as well. But yeah, this should be an exciting day. And, speak of the devil, here comes Kenny Pickett to lead the opposite team here. So, we're going to get a chance to see how good he is.
Can we talk about what a crap decision that was by Bo Melton to take that out of the end zone?
That was very interesting. It was literally on the goal line, maybe a foot into the end zone. He decided to take it. But you know what? This is a chance to prove yourself. It's not, who wins or loses. It's about, but yeah, it was a questionable decision.
I'm not a huge fan of Bo Melton. I was watching his tape and I can't tell if he's a Rutgers receiver for those of you who don't know. I couldn't really get a read on, okay, does the talent around him suck or is he just okay? He's not terrible, but nothing really jumped out at me of oh, this is what he does really, really well. He just seemed like an all around kind of okay receiver. He's a 6th round receiver to me.
I agree. I want to pivot too. Who are some of the guys that impressed you guys during the week for the practices? That really stood out to you that if they may be available in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, wherever it may be, that you'd want your team to select?
My guy is Trey McBride. I absolutely loved what he showed me. I texted him yesterday or 2 days ago being like, he's my small school guy. And then that led into debate, is Colorado State a small school? But that's,
that's a separate topic.
But I'd be interested to hear you guys comp on this. The more I watch with Trey McBride, he's a skinnier, obviously, but in my opinion, faster Mark Andrews. I see him having that exact kind of impact on the game. So what do you guys think about him?
Trey McBride's nasty, man, and he is one of the best tight ends in the class for a reason. He looks like he can be, the big blocking tight end that allows you to go down the field as well. The dual threat tight end, as we like to call it. Trey McBride would be a great fit in Indy because he would add blocking to the line that you guys already have. You guys already have one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in football, and you just add another receiving weapon.
So close. Keep going.
Yeah. You just add another receiving weapon that you guys, I think, really need because T.Y.'s end of his career. Pittman really stood out this past year, the former USC wide receiver. But Michael Pittman's going to be a stud, but T.Y. is going to be gone. I like Trey McBride for you guys. I think that would be a really good pick. So he stood out at practice. What about Greg Dulcich, though? And I know, we talk about him a bunch with the Bruin Bible. I know my man Madman has heard this story a million times, but Daniel Jeremiah had him as the number one tight end this week in practices. And he stood out. He was the most explosive tight end with the football in his hands. Looks like he will be one of those yak tight ends that can just chew you out. You can throw a little dump pass, and he could take it 20 to 25 yards at any given time.
Jamal, you have anything to say? Because I have my notes on him, but I want to give you the chance.
Yeah, no, Dulcich is special. There's absolutely no question about it because he can do so many different things. Unbelievably great hands. He's actually someone who, as a tight end, is even more of a vertical threat than folks kind of realize. And I think where he's really impressed people this week is his blocking ability, which was actually there at UCLA, but given kind of the system that Chip ran in terms of a lot of counters, a lot of sort of off-tackle runs, and also just the way Chip kind of ran things with bunch formations, Dulcich wasn't sort of utilized as much as he could have been or should have been. But you're talking essentially about a Mackey Award winner in what you're getting here. And so Dulcich is going to be an absolute steal for anyone that has turned on the tape and sort of can kind of get wise to it. I mean, I'm super high on Dulcich.
So just want to do a quick pivot here. We just had our first sack of the game on Kenny Pickett by D'Angelo Malone out of Western Kentucky. We're talking about Bailey Zappi earlier. They got another guy out of Western Kentucky. So one thing I want to bring up about Kenny Pickett specifically, I had two things here. So one, he's wearing gloves on both hands. So do you think that's going to be a problem, like for quarterbacks? Like obviously Ben Roethlisberger, he threw with some gloves. I think Teddy Bridgewater, he prefers to throw with gloves. So it's like, do you think this is going to be an issue during the scouting process? And then the second thing, I noticed that his pocket awareness was not as great on that play specifically. Obviously, this is, maybe an anomaly of a play, but just like, what do you guys think about his pocket awareness? Is that going to affect his stock as well? So I'm going to pitch it to Tad here first.
So that's actually one of my notes with Pickett is I really, really like his, gutsiness, but sometimes it can actually be a detriment because like sometimes he's like, I can get it done. It's like, dude, just throw it away, go to the next play. And he's just like, no, I can do it. He's like almost oblivious to the pass rush sometimes. And that is actually a perfect example right now what D'Angelo Malone did. Because like he could have rolled out and could have, but no, instead he's focusing deep downfield. So that's actually one of my biggest knocks on Pickett is he's a little too confident, which some people may see as positive. I'm a little worried about it. Also, not just with like his pocket presence either. Some of his throws, he really tends to force a lot of throws. There are a lot of throws where I watch where I'm like, dude, you really should, like, if you try that in the NFL, that's going to be a pick. So that was a perfect example of it. Also, D'Angelo Malone, interesting prospect. I know that we're going to go back to Pickett, but Malone's interesting because great athleticism, but like his technique needs a lot of work. But that was good technique he showed there. So that's a good play by him. I'll be interested to see. He's going to be one of those guys I could see going in the 6th round. I could see going as early as the 3rd round. I have no idea where he's going. Okay. His athleticism is so good. And let me pull up his measurements real quick. His athleticism and his, so he's 6'3", 234 pounds, and he's really, really fast too. And he has the foundational skills for good, handwork, but it needs some refinement. So I could see some team falling in love with him and him going way earlier than people think.
Absolutely.
Got it.
And I want to touch on the hand size of Kenny Pickett. And
to
me,
yes, that's definitely been a conversation. Yes, get into it, Will.
And that's why he does wear those 2 gloves to get a grip on it. And I know PFF was killing him because, his stats went down in cold weather, rainy weather games. I want to refer back to a quarterback who was criticized for his hand size that is now playing the Super Bowl next week. It's Joe Burrow. He had the famous tweet, considering retirement after I was informed the football will be slipping out of my tiny hands. Please keep me in your thoughts. Honestly, you can either get it done or you can't. There's no in between. If you like everything about the guy and the hand size is the problem, I think that's complete BS. Like the guy I always go back to with quarterbacks, we knew Russell Wilson checked every single box at the draft. And the only negative, you can look this up in Mel Kiper's thing, was the size. And that allowed him to go all the way to the 3rd round. Now, if you were asking today how many teams would want Russell Wilson, 28 or 29 of those teams are getting on the phone right now saying, hey, how do we get this guy Super Bowl champion? He's been to his 7th or 8th Pro Bowl. Size is a thing, but it also really doesn't matter. Like Aaron Donald is undersized. He's changed the position. He's the best he's ever been. He's the best defensive tackle to ever play football. I don't think there's really an argument there, at least for my money. So the size thing, if that's the only concern, like it may be with Kenny Pickett, there is some other stuff there too. But if you're only concerned about the size, take the guy because you'll get the job done if that's the only thing you're worried about.
All right, so let's do a quick pivot here. So, obviously we would talk about quarterbacks a lot here to start the broadcast, but there's lots of other positions we definitely address. And I think the big one is who's protecting the quarterback. So, Jamal, I'm going to kick it to you here first. Who do you think is the best offensive line prospect in this year's draft? And if there's anybody at the Senior Bowl, make sure to highlight them as well. But just, who do you like in the offensive line class? Doesn't have to be specific to any position, but just, who are some good guys to protect that quarterback?
Let me have you start this off. I know this is sort of a topic near and dear to your heart. Why don't we start with you and then I'll come in, because I know I can see Will sort of bopping up and down when you brought that up. I can't do that to my man. I love his take on this. So
I love the relationship there. I just wanted to make sure you got some speaking points in too, because I feel like Tad and Will have sort of been dominating it here. I want to make sure you get a chance here. So Will, all right, if you're the offensive line guy, let's kick it to you here first. Who do you like out of the offensive line class this year?
Well, man, I appreciate it. I don't know if I'm the offensive line guy, but the guy that has
I think Stephen Haglund actually on the LAFB network probably takes that moniker there.
Yeah, Stephen knows his line play. That's a guy.
Play.
I think we're going to try to reach out to him to get him on the O-line rankings.
But I think in this force of Will, I think that might be you. So feel honored.
I'm very honored, man. This is a huge day for me. But the guy that I continually go back to, and Jamal knows this, he was the guy I mentioned, Zion Johnson. And this dude, he checks so many boxes when it comes to versatility on the line. He was an undersized tackle at 6'2.5" that was just bullying guys 4 to 5 inches taller than him on any given down. And what I love about this guy, too, is he's willing to do whatever it takes to get to that next level. 37 career starts at Boston College, was in the rankings system there as a guy that would continually make first team or second team all ACC. And the thing that really stood out to me is versatility is what allows you to get drafted. He was out there snapping footballs an hour after everyone left the field in the pouring rain just to show that he could do center work. Everyone's off the field. This guy's the last guy there. You want that first guy in the building, last guy to leave mentality. He checks those boxes. And what I said to Jamal earlier this week, too, was it's hard to find a badass among all badasses. And Zion Johnson checks that box, man. He is bullying people, like 3 inches taller than him. The brute strength really stood out to me. Our guy, Otito Ogbonnia, a defensive tackle for UCLA.
Wow.
Really can't say that name, won't you?
I am staying a mile away from that.
Otito, gosh. Trust me, it took me a few times to get that one correct, man. That is a big name there. But this guy was having his way with everyone on the line, and then you see Zion Johnson just stand this guy up strong. Like it was effortless. So for me, that's the guy I've really looked at on the offensive line. Trevor Penning was a big name coming into this week. He wasn't as consistent as I think a lot of people would like. And I do think that's a big jump coming from Northern Iowa to the Senior Bowl. High pad level right now. I'd like to see him get a little lower, but he can make some plays. And then the guy, Darian Kennard, the offensive tackle from Kentucky. I think he was the most consistent in one-on-one reps. SEC talent. He's played against some of the best edge rushers in the country. SEC, that's the place where, you make the easiest jump to the pros because the SEC is so competitive. So Darian Kennard's another guy that I really look for in that. But those are the line group that I thought, those three names all really stood out to me. Does anyone have any other names that really came up?
Well, real quick is with Zion Johnson is Murr will get this, is one of my notes with him is his finacity. It's amazing.
I know. It's unreal. This guy, he's a bully. He's a bully. He's a schoolyard bully, man, on the football field. And he's taking he's just not taking anything for an answer, man. He is going and getting his. So I'm a big Zion Johnson guy. So
to let people in on the inside joke is one of our episodes. I think that was like a year ago, right, Amr?
Yeah, it was close to a year ago.
We were doing draft stuff, and I mixed up ferociousness and tenacity. And I just go, he's finacity, and I kind of stopped like, finacity? Is that a word? And Amr's like, no. And I was like, okay.
Hey, let's add it to the draft report right now.
Oh, yeah.
Finacity.
Add it in right now.
So that is a perfect word.
Super aggressive. I'm like, great tenacity.
That is a perfect word to describe the way he plays in the football field. Jamal, did you see anybody you like?
Yeah, Will, I mean, I want to double click a little bit on Penning from Northern Iowa. I just love his upside. And I think that I agree with you that, pad level got a little bit high. But if you look at his sort of base, you look at his feet and you look at the way he sort of is able to sort of maneuver his arms with kind of different defensive lineman techniques. And he's very resistant to swim moves, spins, edge rushers. I just love what he brings to the table. I think there's a couple of mechanical things that can be fixed, but those are all very teachable skills at the next level. The other person I really like is Cole Strange, the guard from Chattanooga.
Yeah.
I think his versatility also, and Will, you and I have kind of talked about this as well. I think the key to, being a great offensive line prospect is that ability to be versatile. And, can you play multiple positions on the line? Can you plug in different holes? And Strange is a guy who not only had a lot of starts at Chattanooga, but had a ton of starts at different positions and was high quality across the board there, barely gave up any sort of quarterback pressures along the way. And so he's kind of a hidden gem for me at the offensive line position.
So Jamal, you're actually making my job easy here because, you're bringing up Cole Strange out of University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. We already brought up Trevor Penning, the University of Northern Iowa offensive lineman. So let's start transition here into small school prospects. So yeah, me and Tad obviously had a conversation earlier about Colorado State, is that a small school? I didn't really consider it a small school because it is a Division I FBS school. I was sticking to more of the Division II, Division III FCS schools. So we got a lot of great prospects here at the Senior Bowl. You got your Cole Strange where you're talking about. We got Joshua Williams, defensive back out of Fayetteville State. We have Troy Anderson, linebacker out of Montana State. Christian Watson, a really good receiver out of North Dakota State. So are there any small school guys that you guys like specifically? Obviously, you guys brought up Strange and Penning, but is there anybody else that you think could really make a name for themselves either here at the Senior Bowl or during the draft season here? So Tad, I'll pass to you here first.
I mean, Murr and I were talking about this guy right before because he was like, wait, are you talking about him as a quarterback? I was like, yeah, he was a quarterback. He's like, no, he's a linebacker. That's Troy Anderson. I could not believe when I was watching this guy's tape. I was like, this is a crazy good athlete for someone at this small school of level. So he played quarterback, running back, and linebacker for Montana State. And he never really exceeded at any single one. But the fact that he was solid at every single one, he's a Swiss Army knife. He's Taysom Hill, but better. So you have a guy who can do, pass rush, you can drop in coverage for you. Hell, even if you want, you can now kick him back to offense and have him be part of trick play packages. So Troy Anderson, I was really blown away by just what an athlete this guy is. If he's sitting there the 7th round, who cares? You just need to take a flyer on this guy. Hopefully he works out. Troy Anderson is well worth that risk. I really, really liked what I saw out of him.
Yeah, just in case you didn't hear about Troy Anderson, he was a very late addition to the Senior Bowl. I think he showed up at Senior Bowl practices, I think like on Wednesday or Thursday, but instantly was making a difference. He was beating a lot of these big prospects as well. Like, he was clearly showing that this guy has the skills to play with the big boys. So yeah, Troy Johnson is an excellent addition there. So Will, I got to pass to you here first. Any small school guys that you want to bring up as well?
Yeah, the guy that comes to mind, and we all know the school. It's UConn, but it's a basketball school, and their football program has fallen off. Shout out Jim Mora for taking over the position, former UCLA head coach.
Yeah, former Niners coach too.
Former Niners coach as well, man. So the guy that stood out was Travis Jones, and I was not too familiar on him until he came to Mobile. 6'4", 326-pound defensive tackle, a big dude. But his one-on-one reps were awesome. He was consistently praised by all the coaches throughout the week. He's not going to be a scheme fit for just about everyone. He's kind of that defensive tackle that you can use, that nose tackle position where he plugs up the run and can really make some plays. But if you're looking for a nose tackle like the Chargers are, for instance, I think this guy would be a no-brainer if he's sitting there in the third round and you can really help your defensive line move forward.
Awesome. Jamal?
Yeah, my guy, I got one, and then I got a wild card. And
I like it.
Who I really like, and I know this is the most commoditized position in football, but I love Pierre Strong out of South Dakota State.
Yeah, actually, really quick, he had a really impressive game at the East-West Shrine game, which we'll get to probably a little bit later in this broadcast. But yeah, I agree with that. I saw a lot of great skills from him as well. But yeah, continue with your take.
And Amar, if you look at the tape, he's basically 2 inches shorter and 15 pounds lighter than Breece Hall. There's nothing he can't do that Breece Hall can do. And so when you look at his ability to sort of cut in and out of holes, just a smooth runner, I kind of, when I watched the tape, he sort of reminded me of an old Eric Dickerson, because
Tad, you're not the only one making Hall of Fame comparisons here today.
Here's Jamal, I'll back you up here. Here's what I do: is I always can make these huge comparisons, and Amir's like, "What are you talking?" Like, I compared this. Really did not age well, but I compared Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. And Amir was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "It's the play style. It's not like the level of they're going to read how they play." So I got you.
You get it, Tad.
I'm not saying that Pierre Strong is going to be Eric Dickerson.
Yes, exactly.
No, I know. I was just giving Tad a good ribbing on that. And same thing. I completely understand. But yeah, continue with Pierre Strong here.
So, his head is so upright and so still when he runs. He's so smooth. You could put a Coke can on the top of his helmet and probably not drop a sip, which is what the take was with Dickerson. I love his smooth running, his cuts, great out of the backfield. The guy even threw for 6 touchdowns at San Diego State. And so I think you can do so much with him. I really love him as a value pick. In kind of a mid to late round pick there. And the other one is a little bit of a trick is Samori Toure, the wide receiver out of Nebraska for a year. He was, played at Montana for a number of years before transferring him. And 2 years ago, he was probably the best receiver.
Really quick, sorry to cut you off here, Jamal, but we just had an impressive catch by Christian Watson, who we actually just brought up earlier out of North Dakota State. The throw was a little bit low by Pickett, but, he just scooped it out of the turf. We'll have to confirm to see whether it was a catch, because, it was pretty close here, so we got the replay coming.
Same Houston State guy. What's his name? I was just watching tape on him this morning.
I think that was a catch, guys. I think that was a catch. Yeah, they moved him forward. So, impressive catch by Watson. So, really quick here, let's just sort of shift to Watson, because obviously, we had all the talk about Trey Lance a couple of years ago out of North Dakota State, and this was one of the guys that he was throwing to. And, I'm obviously all up on the 49ers Twitter and all the social media news, all that stuff. A lot of people are saying that they should get this guy to pair up with Trey Lance. So, I'm not specifically talking about the Niners here, but what do you guys think about Christian Watson, especially in a pretty, these receiver classes are getting deeper and deeper each year. So just what do you guys think about a small school guy like Christian Watson? Can he separate himself and become possibly a day 2 pick?
I think potentially it could be used as a favor for Trey Lance, just to kind of show good faith in the organization that we're moving forward with him. he doesn't really blow me away. I know he's a 6'5", 208-pound receiver. But the most receiving yards and catches he had was this past year, 43 catches, 800 yards, did have 7 touchdowns. But I think for me, trying to reach for a Division II guy, he's got to have either the stats to back it up or the explosive 40 time. He's got to ball out at the combine. If this guy's an athletic freak, like maybe we can talk. But I'm not there yet. I need to do more research on our guy, Christian Watson. But great catch in the open field. He's proven he can get some separation against some guys that are playing in the league. So that's a move in the right direction for me on Christian Watson.
And a move in the right direction for their team as well, because that big play just led to our first touchdown. Screen pass that was thrown to Baylor running back Abram Smith. So me and Tad were talking about this before the broadcast, that this running back class, we got some good names in there, but just it's very similar to the quarterback class, where it's just like, I don't think there's a clear-cut guy that's like, this is the guy that everybody needs to take if you need a running back. You know, like your Najee Harris last year, your Travis Etienne from last year. It's like, I don't think there's that same names. Like, I know, Jamal, you brought up Breece Hall. There's obviously the guy out of Michigan State whose name that I'm blanking on right now. But yeah. So, I mean, there's some guys, obviously, that made a name for themselves, but still, it's not like going into the draft season here, there's nobody that's really, yes, you need to take this guy. So, you know, how do you guys feel about the running back the running back class this year? Like, is it a little bit weaker, or is it just like a lot of great pieces? So it's like you get some good depth. Possibly they could turn into starters. You know, Will, I'm going to pass it to you here first. Just what do you think about the running back class this year?
You know, and I think there are some strong names. Maybe not the ceiling of a guy like a Najee Harris or a Christian McCaffrey or Zeke. You know, some of the guys we've seen the last 6-7 drafts that have been, you know, kind of no-brainer prospects. But I do see 2 guys at the top of that board that I'm really intrigued by. There are a couple other guys. Kenneth Walker is a guy that you turn on the tape, and it's like almost watching Reggie Bush in another uniform. This guy is breaking off 60, 70-yard runs almost weekly, making guys miss. He was PFF's #1 running back in broken tackles this year. He was phenomenal talent.
So, Will, really quick, I got to cut you off here. We're joined by our CEO, the creator of LAFB Network, Mr. Ryan Dyrud. What's going on, Ryan?
Hey, boss man.
Fellas, what's up? You're killing the stream. I'm not going to add much value. I just wanted to come say hi and hang out for a minute.
No, so. For sure. We definitely wanted to bring you on, though, Ryan. I think this is an appropriate time, too. Talk to us about everything awesome that's happening with LAFB Network. Obviously, we got the Rams in the Super Bowl, so we got a lot of great coverage there, but it's just like, I know you got a lot of things in the works. We just had a team hands-on meeting earlier this week. I think it might have been last week. I can't remember, but it's just like, seems like we got a lot of stuff cooking in the pot, and we definitely wanted to give you a chance here on the live stream to talk about all the great stuff that's happening with LAFB Network. So I'll pass it to you here to talk about the awesomeness that is LAFB Network.
Yeah, guy. I'm so proud of guys like you and everyone we have and what we're building, because it's so much fun. It's impressive. It's crazy. We met actually the day before Christmas. That's how long ago it was. It's already been a month and a few days since then. But I think just since then, I mean, we had guys at the NFLPA Bowl. We had Ryan Anderson in Vegas for the Shrine Bowl. You guys mentioned already right now, Ian is in Mobile for this Senior Bowl right now. You guys are doing a live stream during it. We, our 10 podcasts on the network now. We're doing 15 to 20 articles a week covering our LA football teams. We're going to be on Radio Row all week starting tomorrow. Me and Jamal will be there. Will's flying down. We're having Dan Wolkenstein from Charters Unleashed is joining us, and Ryan Anderson. So we're going to be stacked with that. We're doing a watch party for the Super Bowl on Sunday at Surf Ridge Brewery in El Segundo. So for those of you that can't pay $6,000 to go to the game, come hang out 7 miles from the stadium with us and drink some great beer and watch our Rams hopefully win. So it's just a lot, man. It's been so much fun, and it's all a tribute to everyone's hard work and belief in what we're building. And, the sky's the limit. I think this offseason is going to be huge for us. And heading into next year, once the season starts, I think we're going to be, top notch here in LA. So it's exciting stuff.
100% it's exciting stuff. And, when you have great leadership, it makes everybody else work a lot harder. So we can't speak enough about your leadership and, just full clarity on everything that's happening at LAFB Network. It's a great place to work. And yeah, definitely excited for what's on tap here. So, Ryan, obviously we don't want to keep you. You're a busy guy, obviously leading a whole website here, but just, do you have any thoughts here on just the draft process and the Senior Bowl and just like any guys that you like in particular?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have covered a lot already. I think the quarterbacks are always fun just because that's what everyone looks for in the draft, at least on the surface level. And then the real draft next get into the nitty gritty and are talking, the D2 prospects, the SBS prospects, FCS prospects, excuse me. But for me, just because I basically dive into my draft stuff after the Super Bowl and after free agency is when I really get into it. Obviously, I watch these games here. So for now, though, most of my knowledge is just on the USC and UCLA guys. So you're seeing Kyle Phillips at the Shrine Bowl and Quentin Lake at the Shrine Bowl and Greg Dulcich down here at the Senior Bowl, who I've heard people rave about already. I know you guys already mentioned it probably early in the show. I'm sure you already mentioned it if Will's on the show, because obviously Greg Dulcich.
It was brought up.
I can't go 5 minutes without talking to him, Ryan. He is the man. I think he's risen to the top 5 in the draft. If I'm
Believe
correct.
me, that would have been his prom ask, through Twitter.
I got the big sign outside of his house going, "Hey, Greg, take me to prom." Yeah, it's a big deal. Dulcich is going to be like, "Hey, man, you don't want to make me a GM because if I'm in that first round, I'm looking at Dulcich already." So,
the number one pick. Forget first round.
Yeah, see, there we go. Exactly.
The first tight end ever taken number 1. Dulcich.
That's your Vontae Mack, right? Your Vontae Mack, no matter what. But
oh man, yeah. I hope to have the same GM skills that Kevin Costner has in that movie.
Preparation for this.
Yeah. What's fun though is those that don't know, I know you guys know, but his brother George actually writes at the LA Football Network. So we get the Dulcich brother dropping dimes and knowledge with us. You can catch his articles there. So
that's how in tune our LAFB Network crew is. We're getting brothers of prospects on the LAFB Network.
Yeah, exactly. Writing with us. So, but no, I just love these All-Star games. I think they're, the Mobile will be down there. Obviously, you said Ian's down there, but I'd love all of us to be able to get down there and just hang out. It's such a fun experience. We have a lot of virtual access, which has been fun, but it's just, I think, great for these players to be able to showcase. It's great for media to go down there and network. Obviously, that's where scouts and GMs are all kind of, all these rumors always pop up around these weeks. So, it's just a lot of fun, and, I love covering it. So you guys are doing a great job.
So actually, right before we took this commercial break right now, which was the end of the quarter, we talked about this earlier with Malik Willis and how his offensive line was just not giving him the support. He had to have that escapability, and we clearly saw that on a huge run, which brought them into the red zone here. So it's just like, do we see that dual threat aspect sort of translating into the NFL, or do you think people will sort of force him to become more of a pocket passer, maybe more of like a Deshaun Watson, where it's like he can make the plays if he needs to, but he more wants to remain in the pocket? So it's like, what are you guys' thoughts? Like, do you think he'll be able to use that dual threat, become the Lamar Jacksons, your Kyler Murrays, or will they keep him in the pocket more like the Deshaun Watson type of quarterback? Let's pass it to Will here first.
I think you want to have as many tools in the toolbox as you can have.
Right.
It's one thing if you can be a passer, but if you can extend plays, that's just another thing you can add to your team. And I think Malik Willis, he's shown the arm talent where he could be the guy that is just a pass first quarterback. So I'm not too worried about that. I think the worry with, Malik Willis is the development, as we talked about, finding the right situation. But to blame a guy for rushing for 1,000 yards at quarterback, that's something I look at where I'm like, that's another check, man. Like, that's another check on my box, for a guy that can make plays. So sign me up for that if he's willing to buy into my system and, follow the script.
I think that's the big thing that we sort of echoed earlier. It's just, it's got to be the system fit. So, and, we actually just talked about Malik Willis, but we actually got our quarterback change here. Malik Willis is now out of the game. They're going with the next in the rotation, and it is Cincinnati quarterback Desmond Ridder. He was part of the playoff scene. Fortunately, not the greatest showing against the number 1 team there, but what are your guys' initial thoughts here on Desmond Ridder?
I see him as a high-end backup in the NFL. His accuracy is a little too inconsistent for me. His arm strength is good, not great. Let me look at my notes real quick. This is the thing that drove me the most nuts about him. Okay, especially watching the playoff game against Alabama. He is so inconsistent under pressure. there are times where I'm like, wow, you kept a really cool head. You stayed calm. And then there are other times where like, he's just like, I don't know what to do. And you're just like, you're going to need to like figure it out. I know your offensive line's overmatched, sure, but like, we need you to step up here. And he doesn't quite have it. Like I said before, my biggest issue is his accuracy. It's just not consistent enough. Is he worth a third, fourth round pick to, be a developmental backup? 100%. But some people saying like, I could see him sneaking in the first round. I don't see what you're looking at.
Jamal, thoughts on Ridder?
Yeah, and I don't want to be too blunt about it, but I think that we'll call it success if he's still in the NFL in 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
So I think we're talking about backup at best here.
As he throws the ball away, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, hey, sometimes the best play is to throw the ball away, so we can't fault him too much just yet.
Yeah.
But
it was a tough showing, obviously in that playoff game against Alabama. What really struck out to me is that Cincinnati didn't score in that game when it wasn't the first possession of either half. So when the drive couldn't be scripted by the offensive coordinator team. They couldn't muster up anything. And, Cincinnati had a very soft schedule this year. Obviously, the big win against Notre Dame, but he was shaky against second-tier competition all year as well. And so I just don't think he does anything exceptionally well. I think if he can find the right situation, really grow. But I don't think he's certainly not a starter from day one, and he's probably not going to be in the league in 5 years.
Yeah, if I could jump in quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is not a player comp by any means, so I'm not comping them. But if you remember when Paxton Lynch came in the league.
That's my comp too.
Great college career at Memphis. But that last game, if you remember the bowl game, I think it was the Music City Bowl. They played at Auburn. And he just got torn to shreds, looked super inconsistent, was just throwing up prayers, hoping for the best. And to me, that was a big red flag. Like, okay, now they play this competition. He really played down to it, still got drafted in the first round. And his biggest issue, too, was just the work ethic that once he got to the league, but he's not in the league anymore. So something to think about, too. I think Spencer Ridder has much better work ethic, but when you see that struggling against better talent, better competition, that's definitely a concern. Whereas guys that have made it, like the Carson Wentz's, the Trey Lance's, they've elevated when they played better competition. So something to think about.
It's Pastor Will here. Yeah, take it.
The guy that strikes me for his ceiling, and this is if everything goes right in his career, is he could be that Marcus Mariota high-level backup. Not a starter, but a high-level backup. Same size, 6'4", same kind of dual threat ability. I would say he's a less accurate version of Mariota, but that's the guy that when I was watching tape, when the good plays would go right for Desmond Ridder, that's who I saw. I'm kind of with Jamal, though. I just don't really foresee it working out more than a 5-year career. If that happens for him, I mean, he's done something right. So we're not rooting against the kid. That's just kind of my projection.
Yeah, and one thing that I could speak about too, Tad sort of brought this up, just the inconsistency. So we just saw this on a play. He had a swing pass to Abram Smith on the outside, and he is.
By Smith, though.
It was a bad drop, but also I could see that there's a little bit more heat on that ball than there probably needed to be, and that's something that you need to learn once you're getting into the NFL. That's like not every ball needs to be a flamethrower. I saw this with Trey Lance when he played that first game against the Cardinals, drilling every single ball like on a 5-yard play.
We're giving a Trey Lance PTSD here.
And so these are things you need to adjust for.
Let me ask them, though, because this is just you're not wrong, but there's been takes about this about Justin Herbert with the Chargers, that the Chargers they were second in the league in drops, and there's people out there saying, well, it's because Herbert just throws the ball too hard. As a receiver, your job is to catch the damn football. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter how hard the guy throws it. John Elway's the top 3 quarterback of all time. He threw the ball like a rocket. Like, you got to catch the ball.
And obviously you got your Brett Favre's and your Patrick Mahomes who are these flamethrowers, but it's just like, I think you also need to know that, getting a 5-yard pass and getting it thrown 100 miles per hour is probably not the best thing.
Yeah, no, hold on. I don't subscribe to that. If it's called a bubble screen for a reason. If Herbert is rocketing a ball towards Eckler's head at 100 miles an hour on a bubble screen, then that's Herbert's fault. It's not Eckler's fault for being like, oh my God, I didn't know that was coming, because he expects a certain type of pass. That's how football works.
A bubble screen, you're correct. Yes, on a bubble screen. on a 12-yard slant, I would throw it in there on a 12-yard slant.
12-yard slant, I'll give you that one. But yeah, I think at this play, like I said,
bubble
specifically,
screen,
he had the bubble screen out there, and it's just like, I think he's throwing it a little bit too hard there. So I want to get to a question we have here in the chat here. It is a team specific question. It's actually about the New York Giants. So let's see how your New York Giants knowledge here will prop up here at the LAFB Network live stream. But they have 2 picks here in the first round, really close to each other. They have the pick at the number 5 selection and the pick at the number 7 selection. Brian Daboll coming in as the new head coach. They have the new first-year GM in Joe Schoen. So we got a question here, Jez. Where do you think the Giants should go with those 2 selections? They have committed to Daniel Jones. They want to build the offense around him. Maybe a questionable decision in my mind, but hey, we'll see how it all plays out for the Giants as they go on. But just, Jamal, I'll pass it to you here first, to give a first crack here at the Giants draft possibilities here. But at number 5 and 7, what do you think the Giants can do to help improve their team to obviously, either support Daniel Jones on the offensive side or improve that defense to help give Daniel Jones more drives to put points on the board?
Yeah, Omar, if you're going to double down and say we're all in on Daniel Jones over the next couple of years, then frankly, what I would do is, give him the best possible opportunity to succeed on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
And I think that
because really quick, just before you go into your take, they have some good weapons on offense. They obviously have, I know he's been injury prone the last couple of seasons, but Saquon Barkley is a really good prospect, obviously. Yeah. They have some great receivers, Kenny Golladay. They just drafted Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. They picked up Kyle Rudolph in the offseason as a tight end. Evan Ingram, you can sort of, so-so there. But I think the offensive line has some issues there, so maybe they could go. I know there's a lot of great offensive line prospects. They could probably go somewhere in the top 10 there. But yeah, I agree that I think that defense could use some work too. So yeah, continue with your take here.
And I'm high on guys like Toney for sure. And I think, if Barkley can stay healthy, I mean, you're talking about a Christian McCaffrey level talent there. And so if you're committed to Jones and Daboll being an offensive guy, absolutely, you can sort of go O-line, but I would just double down on defense. And when you look at Thibodeau, Hutchinson, Stingley, Kyle Hamilton, even Jermaine Johnson. I mean, you look at, the studs between the defensive line and the secondary there, depending on who's available. I'd go best available off of, one of those 4 or 5 guys and start really, because even in the Giants' heyday when they were great with Eli, it was that front 4 that created so much havoc for them in those great playoff runs and kept the offense in the game for guys like Eli and Sterling Shepard and so forth to make those heroic plays in crunch time. And so I think you want to kind of go back to that formula. And like we talked about, I don't know if there's a can't miss running back here. I don't know if there's necessarily kind of can't miss offensive talent here. Go where the talent is, and that's on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I just want to really quick, as we're watching the game here, we got a quarterback change on the American side. We got the University of Northern Carolina's Sam Howell under center now. And we actually just had, I know you said we don't have any clear-cut running back favorites, but Brian Robinson, actually out of the University of Alabama, just cut off a really good play right now. So we'll see about his prospect going on. But, let's sort of jump into the next quarterback here, guys. Sam Howell, what are your thoughts? I'll pass it to Tad here first.
I love him. I've been saying all season, I really like him. People really get on him for struggling this year, and he struggled. I'm not going to, say like, oh, no, he really wasn't that bad. No, he had some bad moments. But you have to remember just how much talent left that UNC roster after this past season. Like, they lost Michael Carter. They lost Javonte Williams. I mean, both those guys succeeded extraordinarily well with their team. Ryan can speak to that. Like, they did really, really well with Brian.
I am so in love with Javonte Williams. I'm hoping that guy just who
got that fumble?
Looks like it was a recovery by the American team, but is this something that we need to be concerned about? We could have brought this up with Kenny Pickett, that pocket presence, because it looked like Sam Howell was about to rear back. We got the instant replay right here. Nice tomahawk cut here by number 34. I got to look up his name here on the roster. Trying to look at his helmet.
Jones.
Okay, your guys' stream is like so ahead of mine.
But this is exactly what Sam Howell. This is exactly what Sam Howell had to put up with his entire season at North Carolina, just constantly being pressured. So I don't blame him for struggling. So it all depends. A lot like what Will said. It all depends on what team he goes to, right? Because if he goes to the bad offensive line, like I don't know, the Panthers, he's going to suck. Like he doesn't have the mobility to really work around a bad offensive line. So he needs a good offensive line. I love his accuracy. I love his poise. it's very situational with Sam Howell. But I really, really like what I see out of that.
I agree, man.
First-round
Sam
pick,
Howell. Oh, go for it, right?
I think, will he be a first round pick? I'm not entirely sure, but is he deserving of first round pick? Not top 15, but I think he is. If like, let's say, I've told him this, I'm very interested in the Lions pick with the Rams draft pick that they got for the Stafford trade, because I think that is whoever goes there, I think it's going to be a quarterback. I don't know if it's going to be Howell. I don't know if it's going to be, if he slips that far, Malik Willis, but I think the Lions are going to take a quarterback with that pick. And if I were the Lions, if I was, running that team, which, I think I could do that better than the people are now. Hot take.
Oh.
I mean, that's not
the new.
Come on.
Brad Holmes is great.
Their coach said they need a person's knees. But anyway, I would take Sam Howell with that pick. Absolutely. So I think Sam Howell, if someone takes him with the first round pick, I would say good call.
Will, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think with Sam Howell, he really burst out onto the scene his first 2 years, 68 touchdowns in his first 2 years, starting for North Carolina, really solid quarterback. You touched on the completion percentage. His sophomore year, a lot of attempts there. He threw for 348 passes. Completed 68% of his passes. And these are the guys like Carter over the middle, had Javonte Williams in the background. Diami Brown was another receiver that got drafted by the new Commanders team, formerly the football team. A lot of good things there. He didn't have the talent he had this year. But if you're a quarterback needy team and you get an opportunity to draft him in the third round, this is a guy that coming into this season, if he played his cards right, if he overperformed, would be a first-round pick. So if you can get him in the third round, I think that's a great deal for someone that's really looking for that quarterback play. It could turn out similarly to, a guy like Davis Mills we talked about earlier. Davis Mills, he was in a terrible situation with the Texans, but you could clearly see that this guy was, a solid quarterback option. I'm not going to say he's going to be a starter moving forward, but that's a guy you want in your quarterback room. Sam Howell strikes me as the same way. Why not? They had first-round talent coming in this year. Let's let it ride.
Will, we're going to need to start taking some bets here, dude. There's no way that Sam Howell falls in the third round. There's no way that Kenny Pickett falls in the second round. Like, we need to figure out some bets or like
who is in your mind that is a first-round quarterback? Because to be honest with you, this year is not great for my mind.
I agree with you. I'm not saying like I'm like Kenny Pickett's my favorite quarterback, but I'm not like, oh, this is generational talent. But here's the thing. You got to remember, people over Jordan Love went in the first round, dude. Like, that should not have happened.
Blake Bortles going number 3 overall. I don't think that should have happened.
Like, I'm with you. I think like your evaluations are good. I just think your expectations are a little too low. Like, teams are going to go way too high on these guys. So
You're probably right. You're probably right. It's the easiest position to fall in love with, but for my money, he's a third-round talent.
All right, like I said, for your money, let's figure out a bet. Let's do it.
Will, his again, not comping the players, but his production and his rise and fall kind of reminds me a little bit of Drew Lock. If you remember his junior year at Missouri,
I actually see that a lot. That never
junior year at Missouri, threw for over 40 touchdowns in the SEC. Like, his stock was as high as it could be. Senior year, didn't have a horrible season, but the production fell off and he ended up falling to the second round. So Sam Howell kind of has that vibe to me where stock was high last year. This year, there was a lot of hype coming into the year, just couldn't quite live up to it. But still talented player, but he's going to be scratching and clawing. I don't know if he'll be a starter in the NFL. I need to watch more of the tape, but that's kind of the comparison in terms of production, I think of.
And body type. I mean, if you took jerseys and you switched a North Carolina to an Oklahoma, it looks exactly like Baker Mayfield. It looks exactly like Baker Mayfield. 6'1" quarterback, just like Baker. The windup is similar. Everything, the throwing motion. I think you'd be lucky to have a starting career like Baker's had. I don't think he's been particularly great, but that's a 3-year starter in the NFL. I think Sam Howell would be lucky to get to that level. But yeah, you're totally right, Tad. The position of quarterback is the hardest position to get right in sports. That's why people are willing to take that chance to get it right. I just personally think he's a third rounder at this point. And I think a lot of teams overthink it to their detriment. Like, some of these teams just need to take the best player on the board, or the one that can immediately help them. Sam Howell is not a guy, for my money, that can immediately help a football team next year. So that's just where I'm at with it.
Well, I think the one thing I'll say there is what's a little bit – I think Howell does a lot of things really well, The one concern I have is over 3 years, his passing yards went down every year. Over 3 years, his passing touchdowns went down every year. We referenced the second year, the 68% completion, but his first year and his third year were 61 and 62%. When you look at his third year, I think what was significant about his third year is that he ran a lot more. I mean, he was north of 800 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns. And so I think there's a positive there that he's got a ton of athleticism and he is very Baker Mayfield-like. But Tad, what I'm concerned about is I don't like the excuse that, oh, I lost my best running back and I lost my best receiver.
Two best running backs, but
yeah, that's not good enough for me. Because what do you think is going to happen in the NFL when you don't have advantages at any position? That's the problem with that line of reasoning. It's the guys who can actually, overcome those things are the guys that become stars in the NFL. And so when you lose position players and your stats go down, that's a red flag.
Well, okay, that's fair, but the turnover in college is much more, volatile than
you're a 3-year starter now.
Like,
put your big boy pants on.
Okay, I mean,
Ted,
let's say
last thing I'll say.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Last thing I'll say.
The Sam Howell defender. How did this happen?
How did this happen?
Here's a quarter. I didn't even want to be. All right, screw it. I'll own it.
Here's a comp for you. Here's a comp for you that I think fits a little bit play style wise, but also in the evaluation. Because I think Sam Howell does have those guys like yourself that think he's a first round talent. Others, it's a wide. It's not. The gap is very far. And if you remember 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, Will Greer out of West Virginia, a guy that some thought was a first round talent, some thought was not even draftable. He ends up going in the third round that year of that draft. Similar size, similar build, similar skill set. So I think that's a good kind of comparison to Sam Howell is like, where will he actually fall? Because I think the dissidence on him is very different from a lot of different people. I don't know how the league feels about him, but among at least draft people, I think some like you, Tad, think he's pretty high. Some like Will think, nah, it's a third round backup guy. So I think Will Greer is kind of a good guy to look towards in his process.
That's an interesting comp. I'm not happy you brought that up because I was one of those people that thought Will Greer was going to be good. So that's not.
It makes sense. It all makes sense.
Yeah, that's
hey, man. Quarterback position in general, it is literally a coin flip. It is the hardest position to evaluate in sports. We're talking about it as armchair experts watching this game. NFL GMs have been doing this for 50, 60 years, trying to figure out who's the right guy. People forget there was a coin flip decision over Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf. That is the level of fine line of who should I take in these positions. And now you're 2020 hindsight vision. Oh my God, Peyton easy. We were just talking about this with Josh Allen. There were so many disbelievers in Josh Allen a few years ago. This guy's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL now. And man, if he somehow got the football last in that game, I think the Bills might still be playing right now. So it's a crazy topic. It's the hardest thing to do in sports is finding the right guy because a lot of it is intangible based. It's the leadership. It's the things you don't see. And, that's why Joe Burrow, for my money, is a guy that he was the first overall pick, but it's the leadership stuff that he does, that the confidence he has and the confidence that the team projects with him that makes him the quarterback that's in the Super Bowl for the first time in 30 years for that franchise, and a guy that has led them from the number 1 pick 2 years ago to being in the Super Bowl.
Baby Brady.
Baby Brady. We got love for Herbert, though, too. Herbert is going to have just as good, if not a better career than Burrow, in my opinion. So, Herbert, who are you taking in that one, Ryan? I think I already got a keen sense on where you're going.
Who would I like start a franchise with?
Yeah, it's Herbert, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with either, but I got to go Herbert. I've seen a lot more of him. I think the talent is a little bit higher, but the leadership it just has a different style. You can't go wrong with either, but I got to go Herbert.
He also has the right arm of Zeus, man. Some of those throws he's making over the middle, it's just like it's a hose's hose. It just goes. It's a fastball. It's 103 mile an hour right in the hands of the receiver. So
doesn't Burrow Herbert feel like the next incarnation of Brady versus Rodgers?
100%.
Or Brady Manning.
It's trending that way. Yep. So I love the quarterback talk here, guys, but we are watching the Senior Bowl here. A couple plays ago, we had a great play by Texas A&M defensive back Leon O'Neal Jr. So I want to get into the defensive back class here a little bit because there's lots to talk about. Desmond Ridder's in there, Cincinnati. One of his teammates, Ahmad Sauce Gardner. You got LSU's Derek Stingley Jr. So just like, who do you guys like in this defensive back class? Who really needs to improve their stock as we get closer to the combine, the pro days, obviously the draft here? Will's waving his finger. He's got something to say here. Go ahead, Will. Give us your take here on the defensive back class here.
Well, you mentioned Sauce Gardner, and he's my number one corner for the class.
Okay.
But the guy that's been balling in Mobile is his teammate, and we constantly forget about this guy, Kobe Bryant. His name is really quickly,
Will, we actually brought him up on our podcast about guys to watch at the Senior Bowl. I specifically brought up Kobe Bryant. I was like, all the attention is going to Ahmad Sauce Gardner, but Kobe Bryant himself, he's a 2021 Jim Thorpe Award winner as the best defensive back in the country last season. I think he was the All-American as well, first team All-American 2021. 2020, he was first team All AAC, I believe. Is that the conference, I think? So
American
2020, yeah. 2020 and 21. So, I mean, this guy has a lot of talent. Unfortunately, he just gets overshadowed by such an impressive talent in Ahmad Gardner on the other side there. Go ahead and continue with your take, Will.
Real quick, Will, I will say this is a hilarious thing I noticed during my note taking is we have a Kobe Bryant, we have a Chris Paul, and we have an Isaiah Thomas.
Oh, my Lord.
Are we prepping for the NBA draft and the NFL? I don't know what's going on here.
And I just had to Google the other one. So we have an NBA, NFL Senior Bowl going on. But anyway, I just had to throw that in.
I'm a huge NBA fan as well. I know Jamal is too. But the thing with Kobe Bryant is this guy is competitive as hell. And that is what you want from your corner. You can have all the range, but you got to go out there and have that dog mentality. A corner are weirdly the most confident people on earth. Like, if you look at them,
it's both corners and receivers. It goes both ways. They're both got the diva mentality a little bit.
both of them have to have that confidence.
Yeah, no, it's very true. It's very true.
There's something to a corner. You can get absolutely burned, but they can just overthrow the pass. You'll see the corner just going like this.
Trademark.
You did nothing right, dude, but you have that mindset to go out there and say, I made that play happen. Kobe Bryant is a guy that was at the front of the line every day this week to take on the top receivers, and he came out on top a lot of the time. And like you said, Jim Thorpe Award winner, that Cincinnati secondary, and I know we may have more, data from some of the Power 5 schools. That's the best secondary I can remember as a college football fan.
That's part of the reason why they made the playoff is because of that defense. Because you also have to remember they have a defensive lineman, Myjai Sanders, I believe, if I'm saying his name correctly. But that's part of the reason why they were number 4 in the nation.
Oh, yeah, and I'll go even further. Darian Beavers was the linebacker I was going to bring up when we got to that point. This guy, you talked about Trey McBride. They had a segment where Darian Beavers was guarding him in pass coverage. And Amar, this is a big statement. It looked like freaking Fred Warner out there guarding guys around the middle of the field. And that's the guy that I look at when, I'm looking for linebackers to guard in pass coverage. Darius Leonard there just as well, Tad. But, Darian Beavers, he was guarding Trey McBride like a blanket, man. And I'd never seen that from a linebacker. So Cincinnati's defense was special this year. And they were in that game with Bama for a lot of the way. I think people forget that, really stifling, a Heisman Trophy winner in Bryce Young. Jamison Williams, when he was lined up with Sauce Gardner, he had 1 catch for -2 yards on 3 targets. So, I mean, that defense was special. And a lot of Cincinnati players on that defensive front are going to make a name for themselves in the league.
Jamal, I'm going to pass it to you here. We're talking about the defensive back class. Just who do you like out of this year's class? Obviously, Will brought up Kobe Bryant, Stingley. Who else you got?
I'll piggyback on Will a little bit. Sauce Gardner loved physical contact. He was sort of a violent defensive back. He reminded me a lot of Tre'Davious White. Kobe Bryant was a professional defensive back. It was about craft with him. When you looked at his footwork, when you looked at the way he sort of rode a receiver's hips, when you looked at the way he sort of did his arm fighting, even when he tackled, receivers. He was always shoulder into the ball. It was craft.
That's the big thing I saw with Kobe Bryant as well. He's a willing tackler. There were a few instances where his technique was not as clean as I'd like it to be, but that's coachable. The fact that he's willing to tackle, that's a big thing that you want to take to the NFL. But yeah, go ahead and continue.
Guys, I think that are a cut above. The first is Stingley. There's just no question about it. I mean, when you look at his ball skills, it's out of control. I mean, when you throw a ball, you don't know whether he's the receiver or he's the defensive back. And Will and I have talked about this on our podcast. He's going to be challenging Jalen Ramsey for best corner in the league in 2 years. There's just no question about it. He is that special, a defensive back talent, a generational talent in terms of the things that he can do. And then the other guy that I love is Kyle Hamilton, at safety. I mean, 6'5", 230. For the SC fans out there, he reminds me so much of what Taylor Mays was back in the Pete Carroll USC days. Obviously, I think he's going to have an incredible NFL career. It didn't quite work out for Taylor Mays, but when you look at the film on Kyle Hamilton, that straight line speed, when the determination has been made over this is a bubble screen, or the quarterback is locked into a receiver, or it's a running play, his straight line speed to disrupt that play is off the charts. And at 6'5", 230, it's absolutely insane. He had these incredible end-to-end interceptions in Notre Dame's dramatic win at the start of the season against Florida State. I think the one question is this guy truly kind of the thumper in terms of kind of across the middle and inflicting that pain and intimidation on wide receivers? But I think that will come with time. But this guy's an absolute stud. And Stingley and Hamilton can instantly change the entire complexion of your defense.
That talk about Taylor Mays, that's just a arrow to the heart for both me and Will as Niner fans, because I thought it was going to work out. I saw lots of great tape on him, and I was like, this is what we need. Bring back some of that possible Roddy Lott mentality to the secondary, and dear Lord, did it not work out at all. But Will, you had a few thoughts that you want to throw in here? Go ahead.
Kyle Hamilton as a prospect, and Jamal and I, we do this show weekly. We like to have fun with it. We watch tape on a lot of prospects. Kyle Hamilton had the tape where you go, I actually do not know what is wrong with this prospect. This guy checks every box, size, speed, talent. I know Jamal says he can't lay the hammer, but I saw a couple plays there where I was like, holy shit, this guy
I'm glad you said that. When he said that, I was like, I don't know about that.
He can do all those things. And I implore people to watch this tape if you're a tape head like myself. The Florida State game that Kyle Hamilton played this past year, it is the best single game of tape I have watched on any prospect ever. And I've been watching tape for 3 or 4 years. This guy single-handedly won the game for Notre Dame. And you can rarely say that on a football field. There was 3 interceptions in the game. He had 2 picks, and he tipped the other pass for the interception. It was a game they won in overtime, which kept Notre Dame's, they did not make the playoffs, but they were in the running for a long time. That was a game they needed to win. Kyle Hamilton, we talk about the average safety size. It's about, 6 foot, 200 pounds. This guy's 6'4", 220, and he's only going to get bigger, stronger, and faster when he's putting all of his time into the NFL. Listen, I know the safety thing, don't take a safety in the top 5. If he is the best player on the board at number 3 and 4, which I believe in my heart, there's a real chance that could happen. I mean, there's definitely an argument there if Stingley's still on the board and Hamilton's on the board if you're looking for help in the secondary. But we constantly overthink the draft. And Tad, you'll appreciate this. Quentin Nelson, the whole draft process was like, this guy's going to be an all-pro. Yeah. And he slides to number 8. And it's like, what the hell is this guy still doing on the board? What the hell is this guy still doing on the board? Quentin Nelson is like a 3-time All-Pro at this point. And we knew that in the draft process.
Is that leap to me? He's a Hall of Famer at this point.
Oh, I have no argument on my side. Quentin Nelson is the most fearsome interior lineman I've ever seen in my life.
I mean,
but my point to that,
talking about Quentin Nelson. I mean, it's just
my point to that is the draft is a gamble, and ultimately you're gambling with your future of your team's success. If you have as close to a sure thing as possible in that top 10, you've got to take him. And Kyle Hamilton, for me, that's the closest thing to a sure thing going to the next level in the NFL.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So we'll
All
turn
right.
it back to the broadcast here because we have the national.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Let's play a really quick fun game because I was thinking like Quentin Nelson's one of the best picks the Colts have made in recent history. Real quick, let's go. And Will and Murray are going to have to double down here. What is the worst recent draft pick your team has made recently?
Kinlaw, easy. Kinlaw.
All right.
You think that's going to be a bust there?
Don't even have to think about it.
Okay.
It's first what happened with our franchise. So we traded Buckner to you guys, Tad. Like that is Buckner for 49ers fans was like our guy. And he was the leader of that defensive line for our Super Bowl team. First team All-Pro, made some big he
was.
So Aaron Donald is the best defensive tackle in football. It's not even close. But there's a real argument for number 2 that DeForest Buckner is number 2 in the league behind Donald. Granted, it's like if you guys have ever seen Moneyball, here's where they're at. There's 50 feet.
Oh, this is Tad's famous line that he says every podcast episode.
It's exactly what we do. Yeah, exactly. You understand the reference. Like Donald is here. There's 50 feet of crap, and then there's the second, third, and fourth guy fighting for that opportunity.
Oh yeah. There's the Red Sox. There's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us.
Yeah. Moneyball is a classic, by the way. I might have to throw that on after this.
So good.
DeForest Buckner, we traded him, and our replacement effectively was Kinlaw because we drafted that way. And not only that, but we traded the draft pick to the Bucs to move down to get him. Do you know who the Bucs took? They took Tristan Wirfs.
We could have used Tristan.
The right side of our offensive line, gentlemen, is a problem. Tom Compton, one of the worst right tackles that was seen time due to McGlinchey out. Even McGlinchey's good in the run. He's terrible against the pass. If you just even added a Tristan Wirfs to the right side of that line with a Trent Williams, what are we talking about?
Someone into a rant.
Yeah. No, this is me talking to my therapist at this point. It's a tough thing.
And really quick, just jumping back to the broadcast here, the national team has increased their lead. We got a touchdown from Desmond Ridder, throwing it to Trey McBride, the tight end out of Colorado State. We got a nice move, seamer out there, moving across the line there, and just easy touchdown, easy, It's hard to miss that throw, but, you guys talked about this with Desmond Ridder with the inconsistency. He might have missed it, but
they're going for 2.
Now they're going for 2. Let's see what happens here.
All right, so sorry to interrupt you, Will. Jamal, favorite team, worst draft pick, go.
Ooh.
Do you have an NFL team, Jamal?
I having born and raised in LA, obviously it's the Rams now. Oh, what happened?
Well, first of all, Desmond Ridder bobbled the snap and almost mishandled the ball to running back out of Arizona State, Rachaad White. Yet he still almost got the push to get into the end zone, but I think he fell just a little short.
We're going to finish this segment, but I want to talk to you guys about Rachaad White because I really like what I saw.
Yeah, actually, just a really good point, Tad, before you sort of jump into there, is just like this entire drive by the national team, it was Abram Smith, who we already talked about, out of Baylor, the running back, and Rachaad White was also getting a lot of good gains as well. He almost scored on that 2-point conversion. We talked about this running back class being very, not, very clustered up. There's no clear-cut favorite. There's a couple big names, obviously, but it's like, I think if you can improve your stock during this game, the pro days, obviously the scouting combine, I think you could really get the attention of some teams that were, the workhorse running back in the NFL is gone now. You always have that change of pace running back. You're running 2, possibly 3 running backs in the system now. So it's like, if you're a running back, you don't have to be that elite level now. You could be part of that committee with teams now. So yeah, Tad, great bringing up Rachaad White here. Just what do you guys have as far as notes on Rachaad White? Do you think he could be a really good difference maker at the NFL level?
Real quick, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this because I literally had an inner debate with myself while I was watching his tape, and I'm like, it's the perfect comparison to me, is because he doesn't have that breakout speed, but he's just so hard to tackle and he's just so shifty. I was like, he reminds me of Le'Veon Bell, and I know that's really tall comparison, but it was like watching Le'Veon Bell all over again. I really like Rachaad White. I know we have Jonathan Taylor. I know we have Nyheim
Hines. Come on, man.
I'm so bad with things. But anyway, I know we have Hines. We're probably going to lose Marlon Mack, which, okay. I want the Colts to draft him. I don't care. I really like White a lot. So what do you guys think? Le'Veon Bell, good comparison, bad comparison?
Flat out. And Jamal and I have not done a running back draft episode yet, but that was a guy I circled for us. I have him as the dark horse of the running back group.
I agree.
And he is a big physical back, and he does a lot of great things. You nailed it with Le'Veon Bell. It's one of the bigger backs that we've seen have success in the past decade or so. Rachaad White is 6'2", 210. He's a big running back coming out of that backfield. But what I love about him is this is a guy that, yes, he can run the ball downhill. By the way, his 2020 season, the first year he was at Arizona State, 42 carries for 420 yards. He averaged 10 yards a carry. That is a first down every time this guy touches the ball. And he's a sure-handed pass catcher, which a lot of these teams are looking for, check down option, things like that. He had 43 catches for 456 yards this past year for Arizona State. A lot of people don't know this with LA Football Network, but I went to Arizona State, so I do keep up with the football program there. This guy was making play
in shambles right now.
Play for Arizona State, but the guy is a baller, man. And for my money, he can pass block, he can run, and he can pass catch. And those are the three things I look for at the running back position. You had the size in there. This guy, I mean, you could be looking at him in the 4th or 5th round with a pick there going, I can feasibly see my team taking him.
Real quick, my boy Sam Howell just escaped a great sack opportunity. So there you go.
Yeah, but that's also right before he overthrew a receiver for an easy completion.
We're ignoring that. We're focusing on the good here.
That's true. We did have number 34. I think his name is Mafe, if I remember correctly.
Those would be some fun conversations.
Yeah, Boye Mafe, the defensive lineman out of Minnesota, he's the one that got that sack earlier in the game, and he just put pressure on Sam Howell just now as well. So we're seeing a 2-minute drive here by Howell. Got some inconsistency.
Come on, Howell.
Got a nice completion here to number 8. That's Tolbert. He's the homegrown guy here out of South Alabama. Jalen Tolbert, I believe, is his name. Looking it up.
Ryan, I got a question for you, man. Drake London is a receiver that I think is worthy of a top 20 pick. We had Ben Fennell on from NFL Network. Not as high on him. He thinks he's kind of given up on the bigger receiver, in his words. To me, he strikes me as more of a ball hawking version as T. Higgins, just kind of a bigger receiver in recent years that has had success at the NFL level. What do you think about Drake London? Because I'm all in on this kid from SC.
Yeah, I try not to be biased, but watching this kid live every week, and he's honestly my wide receiver 1. I just think he's that good. Okay. He still led the Pac-12 in receiving yards even after not playing since October after getting injured. Just you watch him play in his style of play. He can go up and get it. He can run you over. He's faster than he looks. I mean, he runs like a 4.5 40, 4.4 40. So he still has speed. But then he's faster even on the field than he looks. So for me, my player comp for him was Brandon Marshall. If you remember him, who had a really good career with the Broncos and Dolphins, and a guy that just get the ball in his hands and he's going to either run guys over, make a miss, get yards after catch. You can throw him up, a deep long pass and he'll go up and get it. So if you can get a playmaker like that can be a game-changing receiver, whereas some of these other smaller guys that are great technicians in route running, they're, speed guys, Drake London can do it all. So he's still my wide receiver 1. I know I'd probably say that with a little bit of bias, but I think he's that good, and I think he's a top 10 pick.
So real quick, because I've been focusing mostly on the Senior Bowl, so I haven't watched a ton of his tape yet. From just the bit I see from watching USC on TV, my comp was Kenny Golladay. What do you guys think about that?
I could see that. Just the long arms, high pointing the football like he does. It's very similar. But boy, turn on the tape from this year. It is like watching that overly big kid in Pee Wee football just run through 6 or 7 guys at a time. The defense knew what was coming. They would do all the defensive schemes to try to prevent it. And good Lord, they could not even stop it. Drake London was a world-class wrecking ball this past year to defenses. And for my money, what's up?
I was going to say, there were games where literally they would have 3 defensive backs on him, and he would still get 10 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. You couldn't stop him. And last point I'll say about him, his freshman year at USC, the receiving room was Michael Pittman Jr., was Amon-Ra St. Brown, was Tyler Vaughns, all these talented guys. And when you watch, I mean, statistically, they finished higher than him, but when you just watch them play, he had the most talent out of all of them. That UCLA game, when they put up 50 points, he was a one-man show, and he was a freshman that year. So he just progressed even more in the next 2 seasons.
Ryan, all 4 of those guys went for over 100 against UCLA in that game, and so it shows how special he is. There's no question about it. He's an absolute stud, and the sky's the limit for Drake London. I know Fennell talked a lot about, these 6'5", 210 guys make him nervous because you got to be 230 when you're 6'5", and 210 is more 6'2", 6'3". But his basketball skills, I think, make up for a lot of that. And I think for old SC fans, Drake London in the NFL is going to be like if Mike Williams had gone to the NFL right after USC. That's what this is going to be a reincarnation of. He's going to be dominant.
I completely agree. And sometimes it's just an overthinking process, like we've talked about with the draft. Sometimes it doesn't matter what your 40 times. Jerry Rice ran like a 4.8 or whatever it was and was the greatest receiver statistically in NFL history. It's either if you can stop him or not. And from everything I saw, nobody could stop Drake London. Easy choice for me. If you're dominating at that level, he was averaging, guys, 11 catches a game and for like 100+ yards each and every week. He was going to shatter the Pac-12 record for receiving had he stayed healthy this year. So it was just one of those things. Can you stop him or can you not? Drake London, you can't stop him. Okay, that's a guy I want on my team. Simple as that. Don't overthink it.
Will, I love what you just said about, kind of be wary. 40 times not perfect. I just Googled while you're talking. I want everyone to take a guess. What was Cooper Kupp's 40 time at the combine?
Probably like a 4.6.
4.7.
I'd say like 4.7, yeah.
4.62.
Yeah.
You're telling me Cooper Kupp is 4.62 speed because he's not 4.62 speed. He's faster than that.
It's deceiving. And Cooper Kupp is the best receiver in the NFL today. So, I mean, it's just like we're overthinking it.
I forget who I have a note with someone in the Senior Bowl right now, but I'm like, his 40 time's not going to be that good, but his game speed's better than that.
And I think we are moving to a direction where we are getting past the 40 time. They have the next gen NFL stats where they can show the miles per hour kind of when they are on the field, like 21 mile per hour player in the open field. I remember Amar, you'll probably know this, when Matt Breida had that run against the Browns, he was the fastest run that year. But they have that technology now to see how fast you are in a game situation. It's not a track meet. It's in a game situation. How fast can you be? And Cooper Kupp.
Will, I want to say something there about the 40 time is the stupidest statistic.
Yeah.
I feel it's irrelevant. Yeah, completely.
I'm an engineering and a math major. That is the dumbest statistic to evaluate a player. The actual relevant statistic there is what is the level of acceleration from meter 25 to 40, because that really is what NFL game is all about. It's how quickly you can break in and out of cuts, how quickly can you sort of accelerate in certain moments off of certain plays. But this notion of like off the starting block, you're going to go 40 time, unless you're Tyreek Hill on a go route, when are you ever going to do that in the NFL? It is absurd to me that we are in a draconian era still with all of the technology and all of the analytics, that 40 time is still something that's so relevant.
And so, fellas, really quick, I love the conversation here, but I do want to let our viewers know that we have hit the halftime mark. If you're watching the marching band perform right now, kudos to you, but the game will be coming back in about 10 minutes or so. I just want to let everybody here know that we could take a few break right here. Ryan, thank you for joining us. Obviously, you're a busy guy, so feel free to drop off if you need to, but feel free to keep the conversation going. But if you need a break, feel free to take a break. We'll be right back, obviously, once the game resumes. But yeah, if you come and you're viewing us and nobody's here, do not be alarmed. We're just taking a quick halftime break. I got the banner up right now as well. But yeah, feel free to continue the conversation, fellas. But if you need a break, go ahead and take one, and we'll be back definitely when the second half starts. But go ahead, Will.
I'll be back in a bit.
Yeah, no, we got some questions in the chat. We should answer those when we get back, is what I'm thinking.
We definitely got through a lot of them, but yeah, we'll definitely get to as many as we can once we come back from the break as well. So yeah, I need a quick quickly take a restroom break, so I'll be right back as well, fellas. But feel free to continue the conversation, or feel free to take a break as well. Be right back, fellas.
Absolutely.
Oh man, good stuff. I'm probably once they get back, I'm gonna have to take off anyway. So I'll just hang out with you guys for a few though.
Ryan, one of the fun questions that's going back and forth, and we should wait for these guys, but the trivia is Colorado State considered, would you consider it D1 or small school? Would you consider it big school, small school?
It's a good question. I would go big school, D1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's 25,000 plus students. They've put out some great prospects. Like it's kind of like the pseudo wide receiver U. I mean, they've had some great receivers come out of there, some good offensive linemen, some good pass rushers. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the medium. Like they are a school you know about. I wouldn't necessarily classify them as a big name school when it comes to college football, but it's kind of like I did Tony Jones for UConn, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know the school, it's a name. They are not necessarily a big name school for football, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
what killed Colorado State is they had the Sonny Lubick years. They were fantastic. Sonny Lubick, phenomenal head coach. He retires, and they had a little bit of a downslide, and they bring in Jim McElwain from, I think he was at Florida at the time. It was there for like 2 years, and all of a sudden CSU was back on the map. They were competing. They won, I think, the Mountain West in 1 year, but then he immediately gets snatched up by did he go to Florida after CSU? Maybe he came from Bama or Auburn. He was on some SEC staff.
He was Bama. Yeah, he was a Bama guy before that.
Okay, and then CSU got him a head coach, and then he got hired at Florida, and we all know how that went. But then after him, they just made a horrible hire, and they got, I think, Bobo after that. They tried to stay with the SEC product, and then from Mike Bobo, they went to, I can't remember his name, but Boston College guy that just did not work out either. So they just haven't made a good coaching hire, and that's why they've been so irrelevant. Because if they can get the right coaching hire, they can get prospects. It's a beautiful campus in Colorado. They can definitely be the cream of the crop in the Mountain West if they wanted to be. So I think it's just a little bit of irrelevance is why they haven't been seen as a good football school as of late.
Yeah.
But I was hoping if the Pac-12 expanded, which I don't think it will, but if it does, kind of like the SEC did, I was hoping that they would add either Boise State or San Diego State or Fresno State or Colorado State, one of those four, or if they added two, I think those could be, because Colorado's already in it. Here's a question for you guys. Here's a fun one, and it's on this topic, but how many state schools, so state rivals, are actually in different conferences? Like Colorado is one of the only ones, Colorado and Colorado State. Because you could argue Florida State, but Miami's in the ACC with Florida State. So it's very rare that, and there are some, but it's very rare that rival schools in the same state are in different conferences. So that's why I might get Colorado State in the Pac-12.
That'd be cool. Texas A&M. I know Texas is going back to the SEC. That was a big rivalry among Texan fans that I know. But that's a great question. I'm trying to think of some more.
Yeah, the only other one I can kind of think of, but it's not necessarily state schools, but BYU, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are in the same states. That one's fair.
Ryan, remind me of the question.
I said, how many rival state schools, so in the same state, are in different conferences? So like we're talking Colorado State and Colorado.
Okay.
You could say Georgia Tech, but I wouldn't even say that's a huge rivalry. But because Colorado State's a huge rivalry.
Florida State. Does someone already say that?
Yeah,
we said that. But Miami's in the ACC, so that kind of makes up for it a little bit. But
Oklahoma State will eventually get there because of Oklahoma moving to the SEC. But yeah, I think you're right, man. There's not a lot. Would you consider Miami, Florida a rivalry? They've had some issues over the year. They've different conferences there. I'm trying to just think off the top of my head on something.
Now, real quick, another fun trivia question. What is the only state college that does not have the word state in it, or like does not have the name of the state in it?
I don't know.
The name is state.
The name of the state in it. Interesting.
So you have like OU, Oklahoma State.
There's only one?
There's only one.
Okay, give me a second. Don't say it yet.
Don't say it. Yeah.
It's going to be like a McNichols State or Appalachian State something.
It's a school that you guys know, I promise. In fact, and here's another hint. There's a player in the Senior Bowl right now from that school.
Does Miami of Ohio count?
Nope. Ohio State, Ohio University. Yes, I stumped the group. Let's go.
I don't think I need more time to like. Go ahead.
Any guesses before I give you guys the answer? Any guesses? Hold on, let me check the YouTube chat. Let's see if anyone else has it.
Put a 5-second shot clock on there.
Yeah, there we go.
It's a big school, like a well-known school.
I would say a big school, but you definitely heard of it.
Auburn.
So it doesn't have. No, but I guess it's the city.
Good guess. Right?
You're saying no city or state affiliation, basically. Is that what you're saying,
So
Ted?
it is the official. It's the official college of that state, but it does not have the state's name in it.
What does official college of the state mean, though?
So, like again, like it's like a Oklahoma University or Cal or Texas.
It's the flagship school of like the state system.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a public school that the state recognized. Like this is our state school, but it does not have the state's name in it.
What's the conference?
I can't give you that because you're going to be able to guess it.
Well, we're pretty stumped, man.
I'm scrolling through. I'm going to guess Kentucky.
That's the name is the states.
Okay, I came in halfway through the question, so maybe I just missed the question. But yeah, just give me the answer.
So, okay, all right, you guys ready?
Yeah, go for it.
It's Rutgers.
Rutgers State School, New Jersey.
College of New Jersey.
Okay. Yeah.
Does not have there's no New Jersey University or anything.
Yeah, New Jersey State.
Yes, New Jersey.
Well, that's why I can't give you big.
I mean, I can't even like show my face now at the dinner table tonight. You know that as an Indian American, I got to do better. That's terrible. Yeah.
Fellas, with that, I got to take off. I appreciate you all. You're doing a great job. Have fun the rest of the Senior Bowl and keep this stream going. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Ryan, appreciate you having you on, man. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
All right. So while we are waiting for halftime to finish up, I want to ask Will and Jamal. Let's start with Jamal. What player do you want to see more out of in the second half? Who are you kind of keeping your eyes on, being like, I want to see more of him. I want to see, what he's got.
Just out of intrigue, I would say Malik Willis. I just want to see a little bit more of that. He's the guy that, we've been over this. His ceiling could be very high and his floor is very low as well. So I want to see more evidence of him playing around guys that are going to be in the league, talented players. He didn't have a lot of that with Liberty. Let's see him in the second half. We brought up Rachaad White too. I'd like to see some handoffs to him. He's truly the dark horse for me in the running back room. And some interior linemen I want to see more of. Jermaine Johnson was a guy that Jamal and I were incredibly high on. We think he has the chance to not only be a top 20 pick, but maybe even a top 10 if he's able to kind of, continue to build his case and things like that. And another defensive tackle, Oklahoma, Perion Winfrey. The term violence comes to mind just when I see this guy. Okay. He is able to blitz through double teams and, individual one-on-one drills like no other player did this week from an interior standpoint. So Perion Winfrey would be a guy I'd like to see as well.
So those are great names. Really quick, I do want to throw in that we may not see Malik Willis in the second half because they do the quarterback rotation. So I know he started the game. There may be a chance he may get another drive, but I think he'll probably be finished out by Sam Howell. And we still have yet to see Bailey Zappi out of Western Kentucky. So possibly we may see Malik Willis, but I think his day might be done. I think he's done enough in the game.
My wish list,
for sure.
But it's my personal wish list.
No, for sure. I just want to let the viewers out there know that. But yeah, Jamal, who are you looking forward to seeing in the second half? Your wish list, I guess.
Gave great answers there. I'll be honest with you. This might not be the most creative answer or the most imaginative answer, but based on what we've talked about earlier, and I want to see a little bit more Ridder because we've been talking about the lack of reps against elite competition. Well, guess what? This is an all-star game. This is the elite competition. Let's get some more data points on this kid with some of that elite competition. So I'd say Ridder.
I want to bring up something too. Did you guys see the Mariota comp when I was watching the game? Because I'm watching him scramble out of the pocket, get those 6 or 7 yard gains, little check down passes. he screams Mariota if he's able to reach his ceiling. Because
I didn't think of the Mariota comp until you brought it up earlier, but yeah, that's a great comp. I like that a lot. Of like, again, because that's what I have in my notes too. Is he's a high end backup. I don't see him being a bust, but like, yeah, if Ridder was, Wentz's backup, I'd feel pretty good as a Colts fan. Like, I'd be like, okay, cool, we got someone. So yeah, no, the Mariota comp. It's a good one. It's not perfect. I like Mariota a little bit more as a runner.
He's a little bit more accurate too, what I would say for Mariota, but the ability to have that size, the kind of fluidity, the easy motion throw, the running ability, or he can extend plays. I just see a lot of similarity there. And obviously no prospect is cloned from one to another, but that's the guy when I saw the good of Desmond Ridder, that's what came to mind.
Now,
but I will say don't overthink it. Right. So essentially, if I can summarize what you said, is he's a worse version of a guy who couldn't become an NFL
player. Flat out, man. And like, I'm not defending him. I'm not particularly high on him. My thing is just if everything goes right and he reaches his ceiling, that's what he could be as a backup. So like we said, 5 years in the league, like I think that's a realistic expectation for Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, well, it's just hard with this quarterback class because, I mean, we've talked about it with and guy I want to see a lot of in the second half that we most likely will is Carson Strong. I'm a big lover of Carson Strong. I think there's a lot there to develop and like, and if he sneaks in the end of the first round, I like that. So I want to see what Carson Strong does this second half, and also Alec Pierce. So, like I said, like I brought up, like someone in my notes, I said, not going to blow you away with 40 time, but has good game speed. It was Pierce, because Pierce is like, he reminds me, I don't love this comp because especially as a TCU grad, but he reminds me a lot of a faster Josh Doxson. Because he has a great point of attack. He can go up and grab those balls, and he plays so much faster than you can tell. He probably runs like straight forward. So I want to see some stuff from Alec Pierce the second half.
Nice.
Also, crazy stat with him, by the way, he averaged 17 yards a catch this season for Cincinnati. That's insane.
Yeah.
All right, so we just got kickoff here to start the second half. Back deep, actually, for the I think it's the American team, was Romeo Doubs, the wide receiver out of Nevada. So actually throughout the first half, there were a couple plays where you could see him showcasing his skills, and he looked to be one of those, pretty good, possibly sleeper candidate as they increase their, draft stock going into the draft season here. Just what are your thoughts on Romeo Doubs really quick? Anybody got some notes on him?
I will once you let me pull him up. Okay, so he has all the physical attributes to succeed. Good hands for sure. Knows what to do after the catch for the most yards. Oh, okay. No, I remember this guy. Okay. It's
and really quick before Ted, you get into your take.
Without even knowing the guy. It's just
that's true. I watched so much.
Mid-sentence, I'll figure it out,
Well, really quick before Ted, you go into your take. His teammate at quarterback, Carson Strong, is now into the game as well for the national team. So we may see some teammate connection there. Also, the tight end Cole Turner, who plays at tight end, we may see some connection there if we see him in the game as well. But go ahead, Ted, with your take on Romeo Doubs.
So here's the deal with my notes. I watched so much tape over the past 2 days. I was just like, I need to do my notes in a way that like once I start reading them, I'm like, oh yeah, it's that guy. So Doubs is a funny prospect because I was literally laughing while I was watching his tape because I like his like physical frame. Let me look up so he's 6'2", 204 pounds. He's a good physical receiver, but my main concern with Nevada is the way that they used him. He only ran 3 routes the entire time I was watching him. It was either a go route, a curl route, or a cross route. That's all he ran. So I really like all the attributes he has, but he really needs to refine his game because basically all they did was just like run out there, try to get open, like do your best. And he did a good job of that. But I'm not quite sure if that translation is going to work. So I like what's there, but whatever team drafts him he's going to need some coaching to really get those techniques down. Because
let me ask you a question on that one. Do you think that is an indictment, a little bit of an indictment on Doubs, or is that a little bit of an indictment on Strong?
I think it's on. That's a good question. I'm going to go a little bit of both because I think that Dobbs, if he was a great route runner, they would have been able to utilize that. So I think they kind of recognize like, okay, he's not great. His hips aren't quite as fluid as we like. He's not as quick as we like. But honestly, with Strong, oh, hello. He just got a very high snap, by the way.
Well, yeah, so really quick, just looking at the broadcast here, we're looking at some problems here with the small school prospect Cole Strange and Carson Strong. We had a mishandle of a direct snap under center. That was a fumble. He was able to recover it, Carson Strong was. And then here, we just had a shotgun snap that went high. So it's just like talking about these small school prospects and, needing to have that versatility on the offensive line. I think they're trying Strange at center, but clearly it just did not look so good on this particular play. But just, yeah, something to watch as we watch the game going on here.
So, Jamal, I'm going to mirror back the question back to you. Why do you think that would be a criticism on Strong?
Well, I mean, it's, obviously you simplify the offense. I take kind of UCLA as an example, right, with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And Chip Kelly really simplified the offense to turn things very formulaic for DTR. It was kind of, Phillips, Dulcich, or run, or it was option one, check down, run. And oftentimes when you skinny that playbook up, I mean, is Dobbs like incapable of shifting left and right in terms of being able to run the ball? Or are you really skinning the playbook because your quarterback needs things in a much more simplified fashion when it comes to reading defenses and reading coverages?
That's a very good point. And that's one of my notes I have on Strong as well is he tends to, this is a very common criticism of college quarterbacks. He tends to lock on to the number one receiver way too quickly. That is my biggest complaint on Strong. It's like, if he's staring you down, that's where he's going and you got to work on that. So yeah, the simplifying the offense, 100% I could see that potentially being a symptom of that.
Will, you got some thoughts here?
I do. Carson Strong is eerily similar to me of Davis Mills. We've brought up Davis Mills like 3 times in this podcast, but yeah, right now. It's very similar though. The knee problems are there. There's concern. Big body quarterback, 6'4", 6'5", strong arm downfield. He looks like the prototypical quarterback that GMs look to in the size category, throwing the ball. The locking onto the one receiver is a little concerning, but, he was very good without turning over the football. Single-digit interceptions the last 2 years with close to 1,000 passing opportunities. And he's a guy that likes to go downfield, things like that. So, Strong, he does have those concerns about the knee. I think a lot of teams are going to be scared off by that. But, I think it's a guy, and granted, my evaluations are different than your, Tad. Some teams may look at this guy in the second round, third. He's a 4th, 5th round guy for me personally. If he's on the board in the 4th or 5th round, I think why not take a flyer on this guy? This guy could be a legitimate backup for some good teams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Carson Strong is not like Sam Howell. I won't die on this.
Dad's gonna die on the sword for Sam. Sam, I am Howell.
I will die on the Sam Howell hill. But yeah, I mean, Carson Strong is one of those guys where if you see him as a late first rounder, I tend to agree with you. But yeah, exactly. You see him as a 4th rounder, I'm not going to fight you on that. Like, I can absolutely see why you think that. And if he slips to the 4th round, I'm not going to be shocked at all. Like, it's such an in-betweener. It's kind of hard to gauge him a little bit, which is why I'm very interested to see what he does this half.
Yeah.
So we got a commercial break here, and I kind of will bring up a more general question. So as we get into the 2022 draft season here, obviously with the start of the Senior Bowl, we had a few other bowls before this with the Collegiate Bowl and the East-West Shrine game. My question to Will and Jamal and Tad as well is just which position groups do you think have the strongest prospects heading into the draft? And then also on the flip side, which ones have the weakest? So Will, I'm going to pass it to you here first.
Well, I mean, it's very clear for me. The edge rushing class is like the stupidest edge rushing class I've ever seen in my life. Like,
and I'm assuming you mean stupidest as in like ridiculously good, right?
That's exactly how I meant it, man. Yeah, that is exactly how I meant it. It's just an embarrassment of guys that are going to be able to make a difference at the NFL level. You've got your Aiden Hutchinsons, you got your, Kayvon Thibodeau's, your Ojabos, your DeMarvin Leals, the list goes on. Jamal and I did an edge rushing show, and we did not even get to Jermaine Johnson, who's going to be one of the best players. We were talking to Ben Fennell. It's like, can 5 of the top 10 picks in the draft be edge rushing guys? And he goes, oh, yeah, that's very feasible for this. George Karlaftis is another name we're talking about, the Purdue defensive end. There is just so much. It's an embarrassment of riches, to be honest with you, for the edge rush. And, for my money, you got the quarterback position, far and away the most important position in the NFL. You could make a case to me that a talented edge rusher, I don't necessarily believe it. I think left tackle should be in that conversation as well. But if you were to tell me an edge rusher is the number 2 most important position, an effective, high grade edge rusher is the second most important position in the NFL, I could hear that argument out. It's that important of a thing. It's the reason why the 49ers have been able to compete, Amar. We have
100%.
Bozos, we have Armstead. Our Super Bowl team, we had D Ford, a healthy D Ford at that. Armstead, Buckner, and Boza. That may have been the best defensive line that I've seen as a 49ers fan for our team. Maybe the best in the league that year, period. But you had those edge rushers. It's a big deal. The positions where I'm not as crazy about, quarterbacks, obviously one that comes to mind. I want to hear where you guys stand on this. I'm in the camp of don't draft a running back too high. I don't want to waste a first-round pick on a run. It may be Najee Harris, and he could be a great running back. I don't know if I would use a pick like that in the first round because, I've seen the success of these late-round running backs, and it's a running back room. Unless if you're guaranteeing me this is the next Derrick Henry, and he's going to change the landscape of the NFL. He's going to compete for 2,000 yards. He's going to be a bull rusher each and every year. That would be a position I would think is there. And to be honest with you, outside of Evan Neal, I'm not too crazy among all the tackles. I think that's a weak position group.
Okay.
The fact that we're saying Trevor Penning's number 2, and I think his stock dropped a little bit this week. I think some people were saying top 20 pick. I don't know if I'd pick him there after what I've seen this week. That's a big gap for me between the best player and the next. So those are the 2 position groups in the line and, the running back room and the quarterback room that I really believe are positions that are not as great as previous years.
So I definitely want to hear, Tad and Jamal, your take on the best and worst position classes, but I want to highlight a play that just happened a couple plays ago. Running back Dameon Pierce had a great run and was able to get past Kobe Bryant, who we brought up earlier in the live stream here. But the nice thing was that it was good on 2 cents, that Dameon Pierce, they brought this graphic up earlier, he was one of those power runners, so you saw that power laid into Kobe Bryant. He was able to get a couple more yards after that play. But then on the flip side with Kobe Bryant, he locked up, he hung on to him, and he was able to bring him down eventually. So like I said, you like to see that sort of tenacity, that sort of willingness to tackle out of your defensive back with Kobe Bryant. So I liked it was a good play. Even though Bryant sort of got laid out a little bit, the fact that he was able to hang on to him, it's I like this for both players because both Dameon Pierce showed his highlights as a power runner and Kobe Bryant showed his tenacity as a tackler. But yes, let's shift back to the original question at hand. Jamal, I want to pass it to you. What do you think is the best position group and what's the worst position group in this year's draft class?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a no-brainer in terms of best position. It's D-line, and we talked about.
Seems like that might be consensus against all 3 of
you.
you.
Other than we'll add the qualifier. Other than D-line.
Yeah, Tad. So you can bring up somebody besides D-line then. But Jamal, go ahead.
Well, I'm hoping you don't steal my answer, but I think I have a pretty good answer. But
yeah, I mean, I think other than D-line, I'd say the DBs, but it would be. From a D-line perspective, I mean, you look at Thibodeau, for instance. I mean, you're talking about kind of a Jason Taylor, DeMarcus Ware hybrid. When you
Jason
talk about
Taylor name drop, I like that one.
And Will and I have talked about this about how much he sort of reminds us structurally, mentality-wise, all about football of J.J. Watt. When you look at Jermaine Johnson. I mean, think Jermaine Johnson is like the defensive version of Jamison Williams. He had to transfer. Wow. Look at that Georgia defensive line room that he couldn't crack the rotation in Georgia. Goes to Florida State, 70 tackles, 12 sacks, and on tape, he might have the best tape of everybody from a versatility standpoint.
It's crazy.
Rushing, bull rushing, spin moves, inside moves. I mean, hand fighting, it's unreal what you see on tape with Jermaine Johnson. And so I think D-line is a cut above. We talked about the Stingleys and the Hamilton and the Cincinnati Bearcats. I would say DBs are right there at number 2. And then I think the weaker positions, I agree with Will. Running back, there isn't a McCaffrey or a Henry or a Najee Harris here. And if you're not going to get that generational talent, you want to sort of, stay away from early round pick. But I think in terms of risk reward ratio, this is certainly a weaker year when it comes to quarterbacks. And I think that obviously you're going to get, and I agree with what Tad is saying, that if we channel our inner GM, and every year you're going to have folks that are going to take chances in early rounds on QB position just because of what that means to the game. But I just don't see a ton of value there this year.
And Tad, close us out.
I mean, all right. So, yes, offensive line's really good.
So if you need to get after the quarterback, this is the draft to get it. That seems like the consensus.
Exactly.
All right.
I honestly think this tight end class is being really slept on. Is there a Kyle Pitts? Absolutely not. But it's filled with really solid starting talent. Jalen Weidemeyer.
Wiedermeyer, I believe. Yeah.
Wiedermeyer, thank you. The Texas A&M guy.
There you go.
You have Trey McBride, who we already have talked about, and then we have the Isaiah. I'm blanking on his last name.
Isaiah Likely, out of Coastal Carolina.
Basically, we have all these big athletic tight ends that I can instantly see coming in and making contribution right away. Are any of them going to be runaway number 1 starters right off the bat? Absolutely not. Can a lot of them develop into that? 100%. So it was funny because I kept looking, and with a lot of these guys, not everyone obviously, but with a lot of these guys, I was like, I feel like we have a class full of Tyler Eiferts here, of just like really good athletic guys that are good blockers, not great blockers, but they can block, but it's really where their receiving threat comes in. So I really, really like how deep this tight end class is. In terms of bad class that we haven't really talked about, inside linebacker.
Okay.
It's not terrible, but there's no guy there where it's really getting me excited. Like, okay, he's a great instinctual linebacker and he knows where the ball is going to go and he can rush it as well. Like, I haven't really quite found that guy yet. So inside linebacker, I think is pretty weak this year.
Sorry to cut you off here, Tad, but we just had a interception thrown by Carson Strong, and just the unfortunate thing with this particular play is that he had his receiver open.
Damn it, I couldn't find
He had his receiver open, but he shorted the throw, and it led to an easy interception by the Tennessee defender. I'm going to have to look up his name here because I
bet you I think it's Alontae Taylor, because I knew that.
What happens when it's not a cross or a goal?
Alontae Taylor, you're right here, Tad. Yeah, Alontae Taylor, defensive back out of Tennessee.
I was trying
it was an easy pick. It was an easy pick, and we're going to see the replay right here. You can see that the receiver gets good separation. If Carson Strong leads him, I think this is a surefire touchdown, but he shorts it, and then, that's just an easy pickoff play for Taylor then.
Yeah, that's a terrible throw.
So you guys spoke about this with Carson Strong. It's just so far what we've seen with all these quarterbacks and sort of the same sort of, notes that we're hitting here is just the inconsistency that we're seeing in just one game alone. That's just you see some good plays, you see some bad plays. So this is things that they definitely need to clean up during the draft season here as they prepare for the combine as well as their pro days. These are things that they need to clean up and definitely answer questions on if they want to be drafted in the first round or become a future franchise quarterback for a respective team. So Will you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, first starting with the quarterback position, it's cyclical. You have a ton of great quarterbacks last year. We had 5 quarterbacks picked in the top 20. That's never happened in NFL history. Mm-hmm. This year, there's naturally a drop-off. And, that's just kind of the way it works. And, this year just doesn't have that it factor guy that I'm completely sold on. I wouldn't be willing to take that first-round pick like we've talked about with the Pickett's, the Malik Willis's, things like that. Malik Willis is probably the closest I would be just because of his talent. But I want to touch back the linebacking room. I know, Tad, I agree with you. The depth isn't great. But have you checked out Devin Lloyd yet from Utah? Because this guy, oh my gosh.
Devin Lloyd. About him, but I've not watched any of his tape yet.
That guy's a football player. And he reminds me a lot of Levante David, just like an undersized linebacker.
Awesome. All right.
Very intelligent player. can pick off passes, can read the run game, can blitz. He does everything. So
I feel like Stephen Haglin's ears are ringing somewhere because we're speaking about University of Utah's Devin Lloyd, but you know what? For right reasons, because the guy does have high-level talent. I see him as probably the first linebacker taken off the board.
And Nakobe Dean, I don't know if you have him as an outside linebacker as well, but Nakobe Dean from Georgia, talk about an athlete playing the linebacker position.
Well, see, I have him more as an edge rusher.
Yeah, outside linebacker, edge rush, I think is fair. But in terms of that inside linebacking group, I definitely agree. But check out D. Lloyd because, we don't give out any Utah praise for free here at LAFB, but this guy is so worthy of doing that. So shout out to Devin Lloyd.
Go out. Come on, baby. Look at that. Look at that. That was amazing. Okay,
jumping back to the broadcast here, we're seeing the escapability by Howell. He was able to avoid the rush here. He's getting some good rushing yards there, but I'm wondering if this is more, he's got the good pocket awareness, but I think it's just the consistency factor once again.
Tad, I got a question for you too.
Breaking out at this point.
Throw the ball away, and then he gets positive yards out. Like, how can you not love this guy?
Tad, I got a question for you. What is this?
You mind if I jump in here? I just want to piggyback, on a couple of things that you said here. One is Tad. The other, I think, linebacker prospect that's flying a little bit under the radar is Channing Tindall, and he's inside as well as outside. 67 tackles, 5.5 sacks. I mean, incredible.
Really quick, Jamal, what school is that?
Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, and just incredible.
My notes on He's 41, right?
41. Yeah, incredible explosive ability. I mean, he had 8 tackles and a sack in that Alabama championship game. Really had 8 tackles, 3 sacks in the game against Tennessee. Really incredible straight line speed and closing speed. I think he's someone who's very underrated. Will, I love that you mentioned Devin Lloyd. For all the talk about Thibodeau, Devin Lloyd was Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. And so in terms of consistency across the board, even had a great interception in the Pac-12 championship game. The guy's an absolute stud, and you could clearly feel his presence everywhere he is. And one thing, Tad, I want to double down in terms of the tight ends. Jelani Woods, tight end out of Virginia, 6'7", 65. Awesome. You turn the tape on, you're like, holy cow, this is a defensive lineman playing tight end.
You're like, wait, where's he doing over there? Like, no.
My eyes, I'm like, what am I looking at? It just looks bizarre.
He had a really good showing at the East-West Shrine game, Jelani Woods. Yep.
He's just a man among boys, such soft hands. I think those seam routes in the NFL, those 13 to 15 routes, 15-yard seam routes, I think he'd be able to clean up. Really a value pick there potentially in the draft. So just want to kind of plug in some of those holes.
Yeah. So on Tindall real quick, so I was just checking out my notes on him. First off, you guys are absolutely right. His athleticism blew me away. I was watching the Clemson game, and there's a play. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. There's a play where it's like an outside run, and he hits it. He runs at least 30 yards, and I don't know, 3
special talent. Special.
It's like one of the craziest plays I've ever seen. It was like a 2-yard loss. So most people be like, okay, whatever, good tackle for loss. But that athleticism was crazy. The only thing I didn't really like from what I saw from his tape was I think and this is my biggest concern with a lot of defensive players. He reeks of someone who depends on his athleticism to win. So I need to see a little bit more technique work there. So he's coachable for sure, but I'm seeing his late second, definite third. If he's there in the third round and, my Colts take him, I'm happy. But I don't quite see him. I've seen some people be like, oh, I think he could be a first rounder. I need my first round to be ready to go right there. I'm a little worried he might be that translation might be oh, wow, everyone here is just as athletic as I am. So what do you guys think about that?
No, it's a fair point, Tad. He's a little bit raw. There's no question about it. But I think, him coached in the right scenario, I think there's just exceptional upside because the things that he has, you can't teach.
Yeah, it's just
you can teach.
He's crazy good athletically.
So that's what I would that's what I would say with him. So I think the right situation, and I think that's where there's a steal there, right? Where he's got first round talent and athleticism, and if he slides to the third with the right situation, I mean that's how you kind of win a draft, with picks like that.
Also, my boy Sam Howell just absolutely stiff-armed a defensive lineman. So let's go.
That's the question I was going to get to. What is the ceiling for Sam Howell if everything goes right, in your opinion, Tag? Because this is your guy. Like, how you feel about Sam Howell is how I feel about Craig Colton. Like, that is my dude.
For the Lions off of this pick, so Tad's got to be thinking Hall of Fame.
Number one overall. Sam Howell, send in the pick now. Send it in.
See, okay, so I'm kind of, this is going to seem like a weird comparison, but he reminds me a lot of Sam Bradford, to be totally honest. Like, I think like he can be what Bradford was in the NFL, and because I think Bradford was kind of ousted a little too early. I think that even now he could still be a solid, Case Keenum type, where like Case Keenum's still in the league. He's Cleveland's backup. So that's my whole thing is you have to look at these, because if Sam Howell goes top 10, he's not a top 10 pick to me. I think that's a little too early. But if it's the Lions, they're like, hey, let's develop him behind Jared Goff for one more year until Goff's contract's up, then I think it's worth it. So that's kind of I think the ceiling for him is, consistent Pro Bowl, level quarterback. Wow. I know people will go, well, first round pick, you need a superstar. Let's be real. How many first round picks are actual superstars? If I get a solid, consistently performing quarterback at my late first round pick, I'm pretty happy. I don't know about you guys, but that's the way I see it.
Oh, you would be thrilled with that opportunity. I don't know. I see him, we saw the stats, we saw things like that. Jamal touched on the points where he did really struggle his senior year, and that is a little concerning. Sam Howell, I think he's a good prospect. And I think the earliest plausible area you could take is if you're in the second round and you need a quarterback, and that's your guy. I can live with it if it's a second round pick. The first round talk scares the living hell out of me, I got to be honest, because that is a lot of pressure to put on that kid.
I mean, but again, like, okay, so if the line, again, I know I keep going back to this because I'm not sure who's going to trade in the 20s to take a quarterback like the Ravens did with, Lamar Jackson. But let's just say the Lions take him at 32. Let's say the Rams win the Super Bowl. Everyone at LAFB is very happy. 32. Lions take Sam Howell. What's your reaction? Because it's basically a second round pick. Every first round pick, 25 below, I consider a glorified second round pick.
I'll be talked into it, but I think the Lions have so many problems at other positions as opposed to Jared Goff. I mean, Goff, for as bad as the Lions were this year, he had 19 touchdowns, 8 picks. I mean, that's not horrible numbers. Like, it's the guy we've seen. And I'm not a Goff defender. I think he's very Jimmy G-esque, to be frank with you, Amar.
Oh, wow.
He's a guy that –
Jimmy G.
No, Jimmy G's not great, man. I'm ready to move on. I think the fact that Kyle Shanahan got us to 2 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl with a guy like Jimmy G, how just much of a liability he is at the quarterback position, is a testament to the coaching staff that we have in place and the talent surrounding him. Jared Goff, I mean, he made a Super Bowl. Like, this is very similar to what Jimmy G did. He's won playoff games on the road. He went into Seattle a year ago before he got traded to Detroit, won the game on a splint finger. I'm not defending Goff and saying he's a top 10, top 15 quarterback, but given how putrid they are at every other position group on the field, I like the Penei Sewell pick. I like the Amon-Ra St. Brown pick. Develop those options more. You're going to be bad again next year. It's going to be, from what I'm hearing, a better quarterback class next season. Wait to get that guy and just keep building around. I think that's where teams drop the ball a little bit, is wasting those high picks on fringe quarterbacks where there's a lot of concerns. And Sam Howell, to me, he does have those concerns.
So really quick, fellas, I love the Sam Howell take, and Tad got super excited because the American team was just finally put on the board thanks to a RPO play. Sam Howell was able to rush it in. We saw his mobility there, but also on that play, we saw a great setup block by Coastal Carolina tight end. We talked about this tight end class being pretty good. Isaiah Likely set up a really nice block on the outside, which allowed Howell to get to the outside. I love Isaiah Likely. I think he's one of those guys that's not getting talked about enough, but it's sort of fair year with such a deep tight end class. There's a lot of great players out there. We already brought up a lot of great names. Charlie Kohler, Iowa State, Cole Turner out of Nevada, Jalen Wiedemeyer out of Texas A&M, who we talked about, Trey McBride out of Colorado State. I mean, there's a lot of great names, but Isaiah Likely, I think he can be a really great, he's already a dominant receiving threat. I mean, he absolutely blew apart Arkansas State for what, I think 224 and 4 touchdowns. He had a 99-yard touchdown in that game. Like, I mean, absolutely dynamic receiver. I think the biggest thing he needs to build up definitely to get to that next level, you know, to block some of these linebackers, these defensive backs too, obviously the defensive linemen, but just what are your thoughts on Isaiah Likely? Will, looks like you got some points here.
I do, and it's just the explosiveness that this guy has.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at the 2020, 2021 numbers he was able to put up. He was averaging 20 yards per catch in 2020, 15.1 on close to 60 catches in 2021.
And like I said, it's kind of skewed because, like I said, he had that one game against Arkansas State where he just totally blew him out of the water. So, I mean, it kind of skews the stats, but I think the traits are there that he could be a really good receiving threat at the next level. I said, if he builds up that mass, I think he'd be a really good blocker too because he has the right technique. He's picking up the right assignments based on the tape that I've seen of him. So, yeah, I really like Isaiah Likely at the next level.
And what a lot of these coaches look for, and you know, with the position, it's the yards after catch. It's the
right.
Yeah.
What can you do when the ball is in your hands? And this guy checks those boxes. I think he's up there with Dulcich as the best guy in the yards after catch category for the tight end room. And Tad brought this up earlier. This is as deep as a tight end class as I can remember in terms of guys that are going to hit the field immediately and make it some sort of impact. You know, it doesn't have that star like it had last year with Kyle Pitts. But if you would have told me that 4 or 5 of these guys are going to have 25 or 30 or more catches next year, making an impact in the NFL, I would say I would believe that wholeheartedly because there's just depth after depth. You can wait and get the 6 tight end off the board here and still feel very good about your outcome at the position. Tight end group is deep and loaded. Good points by Tad all around there.
Thank you. I needed that compliment.
Got to give credit where it's due, man.
I'll give myself a little pat on the back there. That's just thank you.
What I like about Likely is, you know, he's a little bit of that kind of Swiss Army knife at tight end. You can kind of line him up in a bunch of different situations. You know, he can kind of be even that H-back in the slot. There's a lot of different things you can do with him given his skill set. And I think there's a couple of things with yard after the catch, right? It's, you know, does he have separation ability? And then does he have maneuverability? And in the case of Likely, he's got a little bit of both. And I think that's what makes him so special. And because he's got both of those dimensions, now that opens up the ability of where you can place him on the field. Because if you can only do sort of one thing yard after the catch, it also limits where you can be on the field. And so there's this sort of domino effect of effectiveness, of being on the field. And so I think Likely brings a lot to the table. And truth be told, I mean, the knock on him a little bit over the course of the season at Coastal was his blocking. And so the fact that that has emerged in terms of during the All-Star game season, I think is really, really going to be beneficial for him from a stock standpoint. Because the question was, look, when he has the ball in his hands, he's special, but can he do the other things as well? And now that he's bringing that along, and I think if he continues to sort of mature in that way, look, I mean, 6'4", 245, the skill that he has, I mean, all the tools are there.
He does have an invite to the combine, so definitely he could showcase his blocking skills with those blocking drills specifically, as well as going through those receiver drills. But yeah, like I said, I'm not too concerned with the receiving aspect. It's just like Jamal said, it's that blocking aspect. If he can improve on his technique, like I said, biggest thing is like he's a little bit average for a tight end size, so if he could build up just a little bit, I think that's definitely going to benefit him. So Ted, any thoughts on Likely here?
I mean, nothing that I can really add that Will and Jamal haven't said already. Like Will said, this tight end class is just, it's 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. Like, It's just like, it's impossible to be like, you know, who's the best tight end? Like, I don't know, dude. They're all big, athletic, fast guys.
It's actually kind of funny because I was looking through Mel Kiper Jr.'s, he broke down his position rankings, and actually at the tight end position, he went 1 through 10, and then he had like 10B, 10C, 10D, 10E, so it's like, it's very true.
It's like my notes are all the same for all these guys. Like, he's fast, he's good, he can catch the ball. Like, it's just all that. Now, I will say with Likely, it's interesting because when I was so the way I do this is I kind of read up on them first and then I'll watch their tape. So I was reading up on Likely, and everything I was reading was like, oh, he's a phenomenal blocker, and he's blah, blah, blah. Like, oh my God. And I watch it. He's not a bad blocker by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe it's just like the hype that I think it's like when you go into like Spider-Man and you're like, oh, like this is going to be the best movie in the world. And you're just like, okay, like that was what I was expecting. Like, it's kind of like the hype is, so his blocking needs a little work for sure. He's not bad. Again, he's not a bad blocker, but I was expecting a little bit more from him in that area. But yeah, no, likely he's a really good tight end. But it's just, yeah, I mean, like everyone else has already said, it's a very deep tight end class. So I really like that. But I want to go into a question that one of from the YouTube chat from Andrew here, because this is an interesting question to me, because my friends have asked me this. It's like, oh, what's the top 10 going to look like? I'm like, it's mostly going to be linemen. And they're like, which side? I'm like, both.
Well, I think somebody brought it up earlier that it's very possible. I think it was Will, that the first 5 picks could be defensive linemen because the edge class is so strong this year. And yeah, I think I agree with you that some of those offensive lineman prospects are also very strong. So yeah, we very well could see offensive linemen and edge rushers and possibly some defensive linemen gone in that first 10. But because the quarterback position is such a premium position, I don't doubt that somebody's going to trade up to get a quarterback in the top 10, because we talked about this. Blake Bortles should not be a number 3 overall pick. Blaine Gabbert should not be a number 7 overall pick. Christian Ponder, I think, was like a top 10 pick, if I remember correctly, in his draft class. So it's like these guys got pushed up because the quarterback position is so essential to your team. And it's just like in a weaker class, it just hurts the prospect because it's just so much more pressure. So
this is my wait a minute. Hang on. Okay, we're talking about the top 10.
Calm down.
After 2 hours and 15 minutes of this show, that Sam Howell won't be the number 1 pick. Wait a minute, hold on.
All right, so no, going back to the YouTube question though, they did ask how many offensive linemen, so tackles, guards, center, go in the first round. Andrew from YouTube said his prediction is 8 to 10. Honestly, I'm going 8. I think we could easily see 8 offensive linemen go in the first round. Will, what do you think? And then we'll kick it to Jamal.
Yeah, Evan Neal is the prince of this class. He is the guy that everyone wants to get. Freak athlete at his size, a mammoth of a left tackle. I see him coming in right away and having a similar effect that Tristan Wirfs had in Tampa Bay a couple years ago. Plug him in, going to be solid. You don't have to worry about him. There are some really other good tackles, and Ikom Ekwonu. I don't really know how to pronounce his name.
It's the guy at North Carolina State, right?
Who's the first person to attempt that name?
I have seen, for instance, the Athletic Football Show put this guy higher than Evan Neal. I don't know if I agree with that completely. I think this kid can be very talented. He looked great on tape. I was prepping for the UCLA NC State game. Definitely was a bully on that side of the ball. I definitely want to see a little bit more of him, kind of study up. Charles Cross, this guy is not a bully. He's more of a finesse tackle, but he has some of the best footwork I've ever seen from a tackle. Watch his feet when he goes out. He gets out of his breaks as quickly as any tackle you'll watch. Kenyon Green is a guard that I think is going to make some noise. I could see
really
that
quick here, Will, sorry to interrupt, but we have a quarterback change on the Eastern side, on the American side, and Bailey Zappi is finally into the game. Just made a huge completion to Tennessee wide receiver Velus Jones Jr. Also before that, we had a great run by a late addition to the Senior Bowl week, TJ Pledger, the running back out of the University of Utah. Yeah, I was looking at the roster online. I was like, where's this guy? Where's this guy? Then I saw the helmet and I was like, okay, he went to Utah.
I think me and Merv both do the same thing. Like, who was that?
Yeah, and he's showing some flashes here. He's a smaller guy. He's only 5'9", under. Oh, and then he just drops a pass as soon as I start talking well about him. But yeah, he's a smaller guy, 5'9", under 200 pounds. But it seems like he could be one of those speed threats off the outside, change of pace back. But just, yeah, do you guys have any notes on TJ Pledger really quick? Because, yeah, he's showing some flashes here.
Real quick, just give me a number. Will, how many offensive linemen drafted in the first round?
I think it's more plausible that 5 or 6 go. I would say that is the number. And I'm including Tyler Linderbaum, who from everything I'm hearing is the best center prospect that has been around. Some people are talking top 10 with Tyler Linderbaum. So I'll throw him in
Linderbaum,
there.
actually, a lot of people thought he would enter the draft last year, and a lot of people are surprised that it came back for an extra year. So the fact that he's in this draft class, yeah, I think he's probably at the top for sure.
I'm going to go 5 to 6. I think you can pencil in Neal, Linderbaum, Ekwonu, Charles Cross, and Kenyon Green. Trevor Penning is kind of the fringe guy for me there. I wouldn't be surprised if he went first. I just haven't seen enough for me to warrant a first-round pick. And it's nothing against him. If I'm in the top of the second round and Penning's still available, I'd love to have him on my football team. So, hey, I got those 6 guys, and then the rest is up in the air.
All right, so I got 8. Will's got 6. Jamal, what you got?
And I'm gonna go 8 as well. I think it'll be 8 offensive linemen, 10 defensive linemen, and then I think it'll be 12 scattered across.
Okay. All right, Amir, what about you? What do you think?
I haven't done as much research as you guys, but
I feel
from
bad
what I
for
keep,
losing, so like, come on, like, get it on the guessing game.
yeah, but for what I keep hearing and what I've read, a little bit, it's just offensive line I could see somewhere between 6 to 8. So I'm gonna say, compromise with that. I'm probably gonna say 7. And defensive line, I'm thinking somewhere around 9 or 10. I'm probably gonna lean closer to 10 as well.
Defense might have 20 first-round picks for all we know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Unbelievable the depth.
I really want to talk about this guy, number 34 out of Minnesota, Boye Mafe. Like throughout this game, he's been getting good penetration into the backfield. He just got a great tomahawk sack on Bailey Zappi. Before that, he had a great pressure on Sam Howell. Sam Howell threw it away, but just like this guy has been flashing this entire game. Guys, does anybody have any notes here on Boye Mafe, the defensive lineman out of the University of Minnesota?
So I love to go first because I actually legitimately felt bad watching his tape because he has such a great motor and effort. Like you can tell he really tries every single play, but the problem is his technique, not great, needs a lot of work. What really worried me is I watched him against, Minnesota against some small school. I don't even remember. And he did really well. I'm like, oh, this dude's great. And then here's another way I kind of go through this process is like, if I see a guy, but the tape is against a small school, I'm like, okay, let's see the best talent he's played against. So I put on his tape against Ohio State. He got swallowed by that Ohio State offensive line. I was like, man, I really love the fact that this guy gives it his all, but he just couldn't do anything against Ohio State. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing here. The fact that, okay, maybe that was just an outlier. Maybe that was just a bad game. And the fact that, because like I said, his effort, his motor, his consistency of, I'm going to get to this quarterback, it's there. This guy has that drive. It's just, does he have the technique to get there? I'm not so sure, but this is a really, really good sign that he's a teachable guy.
Definitely.
Will, Jamal, any thoughts on Boye Mafe?
Yeah, I mean, Amari, he was 28 tackles, 7 sacks, and I think to Tad's point, 4 of the 7 sacks this year were kind of against Bowling Green, Colorado State, and so it was a little bit of stat padding, but again, he's got a great motor, great level of effort. I think he could potentially be a good value pick late, and he may be one of these undrafted gems as well, where if he can kind of dictate his own path and find where there's some lack of depth at the defensive line position with one of these NFL teams and go to a camp and see what he can do. But you got to love the effort, and physically I think it's all there. I think it's just kind of getting that consistency in the technique.
He's 6'4", 265, by the way.
I was about to bring that up. You talk about the size, 6'4", 265, and he's explosive off the edge. He's got a quick first step. There's some stats going around that he may have run a 4.6 at kind of one of the, things sub 4.6 at that 4.57. Okay. I know the 40 time you got to throw it out, but when you're 260 moving like that, that's kind of impressive stuff. So, from an edge rusher, you always talk about that first step. He's clearly got it. Does need some coaching. He's not a perfect prospect by any means, but you saw the flashes, and he's doing well in the Senior Bowl. He's a name that kind of came up a couple of times in the practices. I can't even keep track of all this edge talent this year. It's just insane. Boye Mafe is a guy that, if you get him in the 3rd or 4th round, I think that's a guy you could live with, as a rotational defensive end. And Amar, you'll like this comparison. I always somehow bring it back to the Niners. Samson
I love
Ebicam.
it. Samson Ebicam, former Ram, though. Former Ram
as well. He's a guy that you just line him up. He's a rotational defensive lineman. Ebicam had 5 sacks in the last 8 games for us. I think Mafe could do something similar to that, where he's maybe not a starter, maybe not a household name, but a guy you would want in your rotation of defensive line.
And I think that's the big thing, because it seems like the common thread here between all three of you guys is just he's consistent and willing to get after and just keep working on his craft. And if he lands in the right situation, and, just sorry to bring up the Niners again, but defensive line coach Chris Kasurich, he's part of the reason why this defensive line in San Francisco is so fearsome and why the rotation is so good, is because Arden Key came from the Raiders from 2018 to 2020. He had 3 sacks total. Finishing his season with the Niners in 2021, I think he had 6 through the final 7 games of the season, including the playoffs. So it's just when you come to the right place and you have the right coaches in place, if you have the willingness to want to work on your craft and that motor, like you guys kept echoing, then I think you could develop into a good rotational piece, kind of like Will, like you brought up with Samson Ebukam. He's not a starter, but a good rotational piece every so often to bring him on those passing downs. So yeah, a guy like, Boye Mafe, who may not be a starter, but a good rotation on a good defensive front, I think, with the right situation, can become a really dangerous piece on a defensive front.
And fellas, I have to leave soon, but I do want to pose a question before I leave.
Let's hear it.
The draft is an imperfect science. I want to know about a prospect that you were incredibly high on that hit, but I also want to know a draft prospect you were incredibly high on that failed. And I want to hear one of those. Madman, I'll start you off just because I'm so familiar with you in the draft process. Give me a draft prospect that you thought was a can't-miss prospect. The NFL team viewed it the same way and just did not hit.
Josh Rosen.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, that was one, too, because at the time, the Niners were looking for a quarterback. I was watching a lot of tape on Rosen. I was like, this guy can be good. And then, unfortunately,
there. And, we talked a lot about Josh Allen, and people forget that Josh Allen was the 4th quarterback taken in that draft after Baker, Darnold, and Rosen. And I remember that great SC-UCLA game of a couple of years ago in that duel between Rosen and Darnold, and everyone walked away saying, yeah, Darnold is good because he's got a lot of talent, but man, Rosen is spectacular. And just his mechanics, the arm strength, the accuracy, it was all through the roof. And that was the year that he came back from 34 down against Texas A&M, and just, he was doing all these incredible things. I really thought Rosen was going to be special. And it just never worked out.
Who is the guy that you were kind of on the in on that you thought, maybe teams are not as high as I am on this guy, and he hit?
That's an interesting one. Come back to me. Let me think about that.
I have a great answer.
I'll pass it to Tad. Tad, what's up, brother?
Okay, so I remember like it was yesterday. I was watching this Auburn game, and there was not on Auburn, but the team they were playing, and I just saw this linebacker flying all over the place, and I legitimately think he finished the game with 20 tackles, and I was just I just remember being like, this dude's gonna be a stud, and I was like, he has to be a first rounder, and it was Auburn versus Utah State. And I was just like, how is this guy not being talked about more? And so for the entire year, it was when I was in high school, and I was telling my buddy who's now a football coach at Tennessee, actually, I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, this guy's good. And my friend was like, I don't know. That guy's name, Bobby Wagner.
Oh, wow. Great one right there. Yeah. Amar, you got any for me?
Yeah, like I said, I'm probably the weakest as far as draft knowledge among the three of you guys, but I do, as far as a recent pick, I mean, it's not so much of a huge hit, but I had a huge draft crush on Javonte Williams from last year. I think this guy is absolutely going to break out, and the big thing that me and Tad kept talking about is just with his split with Melvin Gordon, it was just going to take a lot of time, and exactly like midway point of the season, the Denver Broncos we need to go to Javonte Williams more, and it clearly flashed. There was that famous Sunday night football game against the Kansas City Chiefs where he absolutely broke out. I expect him to be a superstar in this league. As far as, misses, I definitely, like I said, we brought this name up earlier, but Taylor Mays, I thought he was going to be a huge difference maker in the secondary for the Niners. It just did not work out. I think we ended up trading him for a 6th-round pick too. I think the Rams, if I remember correctly. But yeah, not a lot of huge names that like I said, I just, as far as hits or misses, it's just I go through the process, look up a bunch of names, but just Javonte Williams is probably one that sticks out the most. Is I was like, this guy is going to be a star of the league, so I still have hope that can happen, but I like the promise so far.
I'm not avoiding the whiff question, by the way. I just need to go back and look because I blocked most of them from my memory. So I'm just trying to figure out okay, which ones I think are going to be good. So come back to me on that one.
I've got a couple. And Tad, You're going to like one of these and you're going to hate one of these because they're Colts related. The one that with the Colts wide receiver that I really liked, Michael Pittman, I thought was a first-round talent. Okay. And when he slipped to you guys in the second, I was like, this is a home run pick for them to get that talent in the second round. Big physical wide receiver. Carson Wentz is an inconsistent quarterback, but he was still making some serious plays for the Colts this year. I think you get a more consistent option at the QB position, and this guy's receiving numbers can go through the roof. The guy that I thought was a home run hit, and he did back it up in his rookie year, Trent Richardson. Do you remember this guy?
Yep.
Trent Richardson, man.
Oh,
this
my
guy.
God, dude. Okay, sorry to interrupt you, but I remember exactly where I was. Archaeology 101, my freshman year. I failed that class, by the way. Archaeology, not as easy as it sounds. But Archaeology 101, I feel my phone like buzz in my pocket. I'm like, what is going on? And I check it. And first thing I see is the Bleacher Report alert. Colts trade for Trent Richardson. All my friends are texting me like, what's going on? And I'm like, can I go to the bathroom? And the professor was like, yeah. I started dancing in the hallway. I was like, yes, we got a running back, baby. We got it. Like, Sky's running back. We got an offensive line. Let's go. Fuck Trent Richardson. Carry on.
Trent Richardson for me, and he had that rookie year. We're talking 950 yards, 11 touchdowns. You're going, this is a pick that's going to pan out. It's a great situation. Never figured it out. Really jumped off of a cliff after that. Never ran for more than 600 yards. Again, he only had 4 more seasons, combined for 1,500 yards and 4 seasons of rushing. Just wasn't the same. And he's kind of the running back that pushed me towards that notion of don't take a running back high. Don't do it. Because he was, Jamal talks about this with Kyle Hamilton. He was Mr. Universe. He had everything you'd want in the running back position. Speed, lateral movement. He squatted, I think, 600-something pounds. I've never heard of that happening with a running back. Big running back to begin with, too. That bigger running back, kind of like a Rashad White, but even heavier, but had that burst and just never came to fruition. Last guy I'm going to leave you with, because I was in Memphis, Tennessee. I worked out there doing some sports coverage. Ole Miss is the closest major college to Memphis, Tennessee. I don't think a lot of people know that. It's Western Tennessee. It's on the border of Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee kind of as one. It's kind of that big city for those states. DK Metcalf was a guy that was huge and a lot of people talked about. And I knew of Metcalf. I did not know of A.J. Brown. So when I was talking to some of the Ole Miss friends that I made out there, they go, Metcalf is good. Don't get us wrong. But A.J. Brown is the guy from this receiving corps. Really did my homework that year, did the due diligence. A.J. Brown is a flat-out stud. And, similar to Pittman, he's got Tannehill throwing the ball. You see what he can do after the catch. A.J. Brown is a monster. He really reminds me of Treylon Burks from this upcoming draft. Big-bodied receiver. Doesn't make sense how he's that big and can move like that. That's kind of A.J. Brown, and I was in on that pick after those guys told me about him, and he's lived up to the hype. So, guys, that was a lot of fun. We're going to have draft talk all coming through. Tune into us next week. We're going to be on Radio Row. I'm going to be with the guy directly below me, Madman, the entire week, doing big interviews, things like that. So check us out. Amar and Tad, you guys have a fucking awesome show, and I was proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
No, this is a pleasure on both sides. I mean, believe me, it was great to have you on. And best of luck on Radio Row, and definitely follow him. You can see his Twitter handle down below, Will LAFB Network. He's probably got a lot of great draft takes, some Bruins takes. I mean, everything and anything in between. But Will, appreciate you coming on, man.
Later, fellas.
Later, Will the Thrill.
All right. So,
there was 3.
Because I called out, I said I got to think of one. In terms of kind of the hidden gem, I got to go Sherman, Richard Sherman.
Sherman, okay.
Was really special at Stanford, and I watched a ton of SC UCLA football, being a West Coast guy, and you could tell. I mean, he was swallowing up Pac-12 receivers left and right. And even though he kind of ran a 4.6, and he was at Stanford. The most academic of all schools, he was sort of dismissed in that way. But Sherman was a guy that I knew was going to be special coming out and being in the NFL. And I'm glad Carroll saw it through the Pac-12 connection.
All right. So sorry to interrupt you, Jamal, but we actually had 2, if I'm not mistaken, back-to-back connections, Ridder to Jake Ferguson. And again, we already talked about this so much, but Jake Ferguson's another guy that we haven't said by name, but he's like, tight end 1D. Like he's a
tight end out of University of Wisconsin. Yeah, he had that huge play to set up the touchdown drive, and then just now Carson Wentz with the rollout hits him wide open. You see the speed too. So just sorry, Tad, just to cut you off just a little bit, but speaking more about this tight end class, it's that deep that we got another name here, Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin.
I legitimately forgot Ferguson was in this game until this drive. I was like, oh yeah, that's another receiving tight end that's there. So yeah, Ferguson, really like him as well. I can pull up my notes. It's probably gonna be the same thing of like, he's got good speed, good hands. He's gonna be a solid contributor. It's hard to break apart this tight end class, but Ridder, I really love Will's comparison to Marcus Mariota. I'm kind of jealous I didn't think of that actually, because that's a perfect comparison. That's awesome. But going back, so I did find one guy that I thought would be really, really good. He may be on a redemption tour. We'll see. Dwayne Haskins. I was a big believer in Dwayne Haskins. That one bit me. And kind of flipping it on its head, one guy that I thought would absolutely suck that has proven me very, very wrong. DJ Moore. I was not a DJ Moore guy at all. I was like, he's small. I don't get it. Like, there's no number one talent there. Holy crap, has he proved me wrong?
Yeah, he's been an absolute stud for the Panthers.
It's like Pacino said in Any Given Sunday, right? Like, if you're gonna miss big. I'm not gonna grab you.
Oh man, well, it's funny too because I actually wasn't that sold on Barkley, Saquon Barkley. I was kind of like, he's good. Don't get me wrong, but like, I don't think he's this generational talent. And like after his rookie year, I was like, oh shit, I was wrong. And now I'm like, what was I wrong? Like, I don't know what to make of Barkley yet. So I know Will brought this up earlier, but I'm not a hater of drafting running backs in the first round. I think it's rare. I don't think you should draft a running back top 10. I'm not.
I think those days are definitely gone. Like, because I brought this up earlier, obviously, it's just like the workhorse running back that has gone now, because we thought Ezekiel Elliott was going to be one of those guys, but he's dealing with injuries. They have Tony Pollard now who's stepping in to be a change of pace guy. Sometimes Tony Pollard looks way better than Ezekiel Elliott at times, too.
He on his fantasy team. Tony Pollard did much better.
Exactly. So I think the days, I'll even slide it further. I'll say top 15.
Yeah.
I think top 15. I don't think you need to be drafting running backs in the top 15 either. So yeah, I completely agree that it's like first round running backs I could see, but it needs to be towards the bottom half of the draft, bottom half of the round, excuse me.
Well, Amar, it's also, you have to sort of see how this thing plays out in playoff football, right? So when you look at the Tennessee Titans, for instance, they haven't really been able to get over the hump in the playoffs, with that style of play, with being reliant on Henry. Same thing with the Ravens. I mean, if we're being really honest about ourselves with kind of the run-first mentality that Baltimore has, the big knock on Lamar Jackson is, can he win in the playoffs when Baltimore actually falls behind, right? I mean, they're a great front-running team when they can run the ball to the clock, but you become very one-dimensional in how you can win. And if the playoffs has taught us anything, it's that you have to be able to win in multiple ways. And so,
that's true.
You need, and especially when you talk about, the 9 head coaching openings this year, 6 have already been filled, all offensive guys, right? I mean, and so where football is going is, everyone is kind of looking for the next McVay, the next Shanahan, these innovative offensive minds that can really sort of take your passing game to the next level. And as a result of that, the running back position has just become very, very commoditized unless you're an actual generational talent. But then the flip side of that is, the shelf life of the running back is sort of on average 4 years. Durability issues with even the best of them. Really hard argument to make for a running back, being drafted high and really even in the first round at all.
It's very true because we saw the injuries of Barkley. We saw the injuries of Christian McCaffrey. Nick Chubb suffered some injuries this year. So it's like, completely hit the nail on the head right there, Jamal. That's like even these guys that you think could be these, tier, workhorse running backs, whatever you want to call them, they're even starting to break down because that shelf life is just so short for running backs because they get hit all the time. Oh, and Bailey Zappi goes down. Who is that? Who is that?
40.
Luketa. Luketa. He's got nothing on his helmet. That doesn't help me.
I think
I have to look it up now.
Yeah, exactly. Let me look up my notes on that.
Jesse Luketa out of Penn State, linebacker. Okay.
All right, so let's see.
And Zappy just didn't even see him. He was just standing out there like he had all the time in the world. And, you know, you need to know as a quarterback that internal clock that's like, hey, after a certain amount of time, you need to throw it away or run out of bounds, you know, hopefully get positive yards there. But yeah, that was poor recognition on Zappy there. But, you know, good on Luketa to get after him.
Yeah, it's funny because Luketa I was pretty lukewarm on. He was one of those guys where I watched, you know, a couple games of his. Like, all right, you're not going to do much. And then, oh, man, my first round pick on Zappy is not looking good right now.
Yeah, so Jamal, just a little bit of insight here before we started the live stream. Tad was going on about Bailey Zappe and how he loves this guy. And here he is 2 plays in a row that just did not look the greatest. But Tad, I'll let you speak on Zappe really quick here.
Who's that center, though? That center did a terrible job. 56. Who is that? 56 Parham? Is that the Memphis guy?
Let me look up the name here. Parham. Dylan Parham, offensive lineman out of Memphis, University of Memphis.
Yeah, here. Okay, exactly. Look at this last note I have. His weight is an issue. He's very susceptible to the bull rush. That is exactly what this happened with. Because literally, he is. Let me look up his measurements real quick. It's he's 6'3", 285. He's a 285-pound center. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. So, no, I don't blame that on Zappe. That's exactly why. Parham, kick him out to guard, make him a more athletic kind of pull guard type, but he cannot be a center. And that exactly shows why. Is because if you have a strong – can you imagine that guy going against Aaron Donald? That's a disaster.
Flattened, yeah. But really quick, I know you were really high on Zappe, and obviously, you know, these are just 2 plays out of a million, obviously, but just you're speaking so highly about him. So what do you like so much about Bailey Zappe?
So it's just the fact that he, like I said with Carson Strong, is he's at almost the opposite of it, right? Zappe is such a smart quarterback that he knows how to go through his progressions. His footwork is really, really good. I'm trying to pull up my notes while this is me. Also, 62 touchdowns. So he actually broke Joe Burrow's college record, which a lot of people don't know. So 62 touchdowns is absolutely ridiculous. Let me look real quick. Good reads. Already said that. Pocket presence, mobility, his footwork is really good. That's the biggest thing is, especially with Carson Strong, you can just tell like a lot of guys I would stand up and demonstrate, but that make me look really lame. A lot of
don't do that.
Yeah, a lot of the quarterbacks that you see in college like kind of throw like this and like kind of go off their front foot. You don't see that with Zappe. He understands like, okay, kind of shuffle back, go, you know, off my back foot. That's how you get most of that throw power. So his arm accuracy is really good. His arm strength is really good. He knows when to get rid of the ball. Like he doesn't try to force too many plays. He doesn't want to be a star, right? He's not like, I can do everything. He's like, nope, I know when to give up on a play. I know when to just, you know, survive into the next play. I really like him. And again, if this was a class like last year, would I be saying he should be a first rounder? No, but with a weaker quarterback class that we've already discussed plenty, I think that if he went to any other school, if there was any big school decal on the side of his helmet today, he'd be in the discussion as a first round pick.
Okay. Jamal, any notes on Zappe?
Yeah, you know, I think I agree with Tad in terms of I love his sort of polish, and I think that he can make different types of throws. I think he's very intelligent in terms of reads. I think he understands the game. But I hate to use the S word here, but he feels like a bit of a system quarterback. And he kind of reminds me a lot of those great Texas Tech air raid quarterbacks, kind of
like a Graham Harrell type.
Graham Harrell, you know, Seth Dodge, BJ Simons, even Kingsbury himself, you know, guys that just sort of racked up a ton of yards because they had just a very high IQ of the system that they were running. But that knowledge doesn't necessarily translate to other systems. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm getting from Zappe here. So obviously he carved it up statistically because he's got a really high IQ. But I think Zappe, more so than a great NFL prospect, maybe the next great offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Hey,
okay.
That's a good discussion that the side guys had on our last podcast. It was like, who's going to be the next best? Actually, you know what, Jamal? I'll pose that question to you. what NFL player is going to be the next great coach? So remind me of your pick. It was Alex Smith.
I picked Alex Smith, yeah, and you had Chase Daniel.
I picked Chase Daniel. So
that's a really good one, huh? Yeah, that's really nice. I got to think a little bit there, but
it's a tough question.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, but going back to Zappy, I'll be totally honest, I had not considered, like, is it the system that's making him look that good? But that's fair. I can definitely say, especially given what we see today, I could see that being a very valid criticism.
And I think the big thing, I still need to watch tape on Bailey Zappi, but it's like I sort of made this comparison with Davis Mills last year. That's like, I think he can be a good quarterback in the NFL. He just needs that good support system around him. So at Houston, we sort of talked about, he sort of got thrown to the wolves, but towards the end of the season, he started to develop a little bit more. He got a lot more comfortable. You could see more polish from him. That's the best word that I can use there, Jamal. You brought that one up. So it's like you see that polish, you see that refinement. He's getting a little bit better. I think heading into the next season here, 2022, if he's the starter, I think he can continue his development. Unfortunately, Houston is just a huge train wreck, so it may limit his development, but I saw a lot of promise in him, especially, when a lot of people were counting him out of the first round. Obviously, I think he went in the third round. He was their first pick there. So, but yeah, I think I could probably see something very similar with Bailey Zappi. I'll have to watch the tape on him, but just based off what you guys are saying, it'd be very similar to Davis Mills in the sense that if he lands in the right situation, he can develop and grow, and you could see some flashes there, but it's just, getting that right support system on the field will be huge for sure.
One guy that's been impressing me a lot, sorry to interrupt, is Bernard Raymond. That tackle out of Central Michigan, he's been killing it today. Like, I know it's kind of hard to watch the offensive line, but he is just watch him. He's on Carson Strong's left side. He's been absolutely shutting everyone down today. So sorry. Anyway, Jamal, keep going.
No, Ted. I was just going to go back to your question of, kind of next great NFL coach.
Oh,
yeah. He's young. He's still kind of in college, but, he's not going to be a pro prospect because of size reasons and stuff. But in terms of his level of intelligence, keep an eye out for the kid Chase Griffin out of UCLA. He is going to be very special, just in terms of he's already kind of doing his master's degree in educational leadership. Really at the forefront of kind of the nil movement on both sides. His teammates love him. At the Elite 11 camp, they said felt like it was going to meeting kind of the next president of the United States. So keep an eye out on that kid in sort of off the field stuff.
And pardon my ignorance here, but he's a quarterback, or what position does he play?
Quarterback.
Okay.
He's the backup to Thompson Robinson at UCLA right now, but I think he has the makings of all the elements of being a great coach.
That's a good pick. We didn't think about going college players.
Yeah, we were thinking more NFL players, but that's a great pick there. So really quick, we just saw a play. It was a unfortunate slight overthrow. Christian Watson, once again, he's showing some flashes here that he could be a really good receiver. He beat the defender. I think there's a little bit of separation. You see the height came into play. Even with that wingspan, he still almost brought in that overthrow. So it's just I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Christian Watson. He's shown some flashes there, even though that wasn't a catch. Clearly it was pass interference. They just threw a flag for it.
Did they call PI on McCollum?
Yeah, they just threw a flag right now, so that's why they're at the 5 right now. So, but I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Christian Watson.
See, and that's actually one of my notes on McCollum as well, is that he's like 6'4", 220, something like that.
This is Zion McCollum out of Sam Houston, the defensive back. Okay.
Yeah, so thank you. So Sam Houston State, he's a very physical type corner, but the problem is he's way too physical. He loves grabbing receivers and loves being, and you saw earlier when he got burned, I don't remember by who, but they literally pushed him to the ground because he was trying too hard in press coverage. It was I get it. This is one of my favorite parts of Senior Bowl is what small school guy is really going to prove himself. And McCollum's not him. He's a small school guy for a reason. He's way too physical, has way too many holes in his game. I don't like him.
Yeah, Tad, I think that's a fair statement because, oftentimes when you're getting beat off the line a lot, that's when the physicality, you feel like you have to be overly physical, right? And that's kind of what we're seeing out of McCollum. And, I think it's also one of those things where, hey, maybe there's kind of a package, 4-2-5 NFL scheme where, you kind of are more of kind of that blitzing defensive back and you can kind of use your physicality in a way. But
obviously to waste a pick on something that's so limited, I think is going to be a tall ask.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a 7th round pick, but even then, I'm just like, there's so much work to do there that I'm not even sure if it's worth it.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, because he plays at a smaller school in Sam Houston State, that physicality can work against the, quote unquote, lesser receivers, because it'll stop them from going in their route. They're like, all right, I kind of need to give up on this guy. But yeah, if you're playing against stiffer competition, you're getting that physical. There's receivers that can easily break away, and that's when the physicality can definitely hurt you. That's where you see lots of defensive pass interference calls. So yeah, that will be a detriment as he continues the process, getting to the combine and his pro day, obviously. So,
all right, so 4th and goal here. This will be interesting to watch what they do.
Oh, but there's a flag. Looks like it's false start.
I'm happy that Rachaad White. Well, I'm also happy to know that I'm not insane, because when I wrote the Le'Veon Bell comparison, I was like, people are absolutely insane. So I'm happy you guys like Rachaad White as much as I do, and I'm also happy that he's been getting. If I'm not mistaken, he's been playing this entire second half. So. I think he's exactly like what Le'Veon Bell was. He's going to be a mid-round pick, and he's going to burst out on the scene. Maybe not his rookie year, but I really do think, 2-3 years down the road, we're going to be like, oh, yeah, this guy was good. How did he slip? Exactly like what Le'Veon Bell was.
And Tad, he was a workhorse. He's been a workhorse at Arizona State, and they had a nice back in Cranium, and basically when Rachaad White kind of got back from injury, we never heard from him.
Sorry, Jamal. We just got a shank on I think like a maybe 27-yard field goal. I not confirm on the yardage there, but it was a chip shot. And the kicker here, Mevis out of Iowa State. Let me get his first name.
I know. Jamal, if you have any notes on kickers, go for it.
Andrew Mevis, the place kicker out of Iowa State. He missed a pretty easy one.
Kicker game,
As soon as I saw everyone's going through the rosters, long snapper, skip. I was like, I'm not dealing with it.
No, if you're not kind of Justin Tucker, I think it's going to be tough.
Speaking of Justin Tucker, because he went to the University of Texas, the kicker on the other side.
I was gonna say my only kicker note, by the way, is Dicker the kicker. That's my
that's the nickname there. But he missed 2 field goals too, so the kickers have not been looking so good in the Senior Bowl this game so far.
Well, the funny thing is, we're going into a Super Bowl where you have the ultimate draft a kicker,
Evan McPherson,
exactly. That's why you draft a kicker. So now, well, do you draft a kicker? Because it looks like most of them suck.
But then it's funny because then on the flip side, you got the Rams who have Matt Gay, who is a Tampa Bay cast-off, who I think went undrafted. So it's like, you got both sides there.
What's ironic, guys, is, the divisional playoff, we all saw it, right? 4 epic games, all came down to kicks on the final play.
Yep.
And so when you think about the margin for error between a team that either missed the playoffs or lost in the first round versus a team that's in the Super Bowl, you're talking about the difference potentially of 2 kicks. And so the fact that we still sort of treat that position as kind of the ultimate commodity, and you don't even need to draft it and just have kind of tryouts, is actually rather short-sighted. When you really
it's very surprising.
Criticality of good kicking in clutch situations.
I think the problem, Jamal, is just when you draft a kicker, then there's that much pressure on that kicker. Because obviously we're going to lambaste the Raiders for taking Sebastian Janikowski in the first round. He was pretty good at times. But your first round pick, come on.
Forget about what was his name, Robert Aguayo?
Yeah, I was actually just about to bring him up a couple years ago. It was Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think in the second round, or was it the first round? I think it was the second round. They drafted Robert Aguayo. I think they cut him that same year. That's how bad it turned out for Robert Aguayo. So, yeah, I think that's the problem that you see.
I'm not saying first round, second round, but I maybe consider taking more of a flyer on guys in the 7th round.
Yeah, honestly, for a day 3 pick, I don't see that being a problem. So, Evan McPherson in the 5th round, that's not a huge deal. 6th, 7th round, it's why not? But it's just I completely agree with you. On such a crucial position at times, to not have a good one is that can hurt you at times. Very, very big. Because, Tad, I think we brought this up before on the podcast with that game between Seattle and Minnesota. Yeah, and Blair Walsh had that chip shot to win the playoff game and Seattle escaped with a victory. It's That's even a prize kicker, and he missed that one. So it's like those are big things for sure.
It always blows my mind with how many spots are available on a roster that, like, if your kicker gets hurt, most teams are fucked.
It's true.
Like,
very true.
Okay, you can have like a 7th active receiver, or you shut that guy down, put him in sweats, and you have a backup kicker ready to go. Like, I'm surprised more teams don't have a backup kicker ready to go.
It actually happened to the Niners. It wasn't with the kicker, but our punter, he got tackled pretty hard. He was in the concussion protocol, so Robbie Gould was doing the punting. And then, of course, they have to bring up the fact that it's like, oh, perchance Robbie Gould gets hurt this game. The backup kicker is Kyle Juszczyk. And it was just like, yeah, Ted, exactly like you said. It's like if your kicker or punter gets hurt in a game, it's like you're kind of screwed.
But that's what confused me, because thank God you have the 8th receiver good to go.
Exactly.
It's like, really good I don't know. But anyway, so I looked it up. Matt Gay was in fact drafted by the Buccaneers. Jamal, do you want to guess where he went to college?
Matt Gay?
It's Pac-12.
Big Ten school, huh? Big Ten, I'm gonna say. Maybe like Illinois.
Nope.
I think Tad just said Pac-12, right?
Pac-12.
Oh, you said Pac-12. Oh, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Give a second guess.
Washington State?
Nope.
I'm going to say Colorado.
Closer. Matt Gay was drafted in the 5th round. Let me look at the year real quick. He was drafted in the 5th round, 145th overall of the 2019 draft, out of the University of Utah.
Oh,
okay. I think that's why Steven got excited when Matt Gay signed by the Rams. Oh, that sort of is coming back to me now. I remember that conversation on the Slack, I think. Good stuff. So, hey, obviously, we sort of brought it up a little bit here with the kickers for both the Super Bowl teams. So, let's really quickly talk about the Super Bowl. So, Tad, do you have a favorite here? Do you like the Bengals? I mean, I know we work for LAFB Network, but let's sort of be biased here. It's just like, who do you like a little bit more here between the Rams and the Bengals?
Are we talking like as in who do I want to win, or who do I think is going to win?
Who do you think is going to win?
I think the Rams are going to win. I don't want them to, because I'm from as our listeners know, I'm from St. Louis, so I have a deep hatred for Stan Kroenke. My friends are always like, "You're not actually going to spit in his face." I'm like, "Yeah, no, if I see him, I'm going to spit in his face." But yeah, no, like literally, dude. Like, I was one of those crazy fans that burned my Rams t-shirt when they moved. Like, I was one of those guys. I actually did it. I saw the video, by the way. Kiersey, awesome.
And he's working for the Los Angeles Football Network now,
No, you can ask him like at least once an episode. I have to apologize to LAFB fans.
That's true.
I despise the Rams.
It goes both ways being a Niner fan. It happens a lot. But continue with your take here,
Ted. What has everyone been? Sorry, I'm watching this 4th down play. Oh, yeah.
Flag may bail him out.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, there is a flag. There's a couple seconds ahead of me. But no, I think, what everyone is saying is the biggest weakness of the Bengals team, that offensive line. And I think Burrow is going to get absolutely massacred by that pass rush. I'm really hoping for a good game, but I really see the potential there for a Rams blowout. I really, really do. So I want the Bengals to win it. I think the Rams are going to win it. I'm going to go 27-17 Rams.
Okay. Jamal, your thoughts?
Yeah, Tad, I agree with you. I think if you look at just sort of talent across the board, the Rams are more talented, and especially at the line, D line versus the Cincinnati O line. I think you got to think the Rams are the favorite for a variety of those reasons. Where I'm a little bit concerned, I'll be honest with you, is two areas for the Rams. One is in the secondary. I think that if Burrow actually can sort of survive the pass rush, much easier said than done, but if they can kind of scheme to get the ball out of his hands quickly, I think it's going to be trouble for the Rams in the secondary. And I think the second, to be honest with you, from the Rams' perspective, is going to be nerves. I think that there's a lot of pressure on Matthew Stafford, and there's a lot of pressure on Sean McVay. And I think, with Stafford, even if you go back and look at how the Rams closed out that Tampa Bay game, when you look at how the Rams played kind of the first half of that Niner game, if it wasn't for,
the Tart drop interception, the Niners were the Rams were in a lot of trouble in that second half. Now, granted, the flip side of that is the Rams probably should have blown the Niners out by halftime with all of their drops. But it's still a little bit of shaky play out of Stafford, and that's kind of getting lost in the narrative of them getting to the Super Bowl. And he's made some great throws, but he's also made some misses. And I think more importantly, McVay seems to have, for as much of a genius as he seems to have these unbelievable brain cramps in the biggest game. I mean, when you go back to the Super Bowl against the Patriots and only having 3 points and just getting kind of devoured by Belichick, and then when you look at the game against the Niners and these bizarre challenge calls and just, bizarre, questionable plays on third down.
What was that weird challenge he did that was like a fumble or something?
Yeah, clearly the forearm forearm was down. I mean, and it was like, what are you even challenging? And then the Rams were out of timeouts and you knew it was going to be a close game down the stretch. And I worry a little bit. I worry about his sort of mental disposition and handling pressure in some of these key moments, because I think he knows in his mind that he's supposed to win this game. If you're Sean McVay, with the team that you have versus the team on that other side, make no mistake.
He was giving how much the team has given up to get there. Like the Bengals have given up. Like they tanked for a couple of years.
The Bengals are kind of on
have everything. The Rams are like, we sold 5 years of our future for this.
Exactly. And so you wonder a little bit if this thing gets to stay a close game, third quarter, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, are the Rams going to do something boneheaded and kind of blow this game? And so I agree with you, Dad. I think it could be a Rams blowout in the first half, but I think that first half is going to be telling. If the Bengals can stay in the game between baby Brady and McVay having a brain cramp, this thing could go the other way.
No, for sure. And I think a big part of it too is just like the Bengals, I don't know what the right answer is, to be honest. I know that's kind of my job is to tell you what the right answer is. But I if the Bengals, I'm going to be very interested to see if they go, okay, their pass rush is too good. Let's rely on Mixon to run it. Or their pass rush is so good. Let's have Mixon not even run it and just be that extra blocker. Like, I think that's going to be fascinating to watch.
Or Mixon. I mean, we talked about kind of the Le'Veon Bell comparison, right? I mean, Mixon was kind of the Le'Veon Bell comparison, when he sort of broke out. And, the other thing that could happen is, they just may use Mixon a ton in the screen game and just get
that would be a really smart way to play that.
Very comfortable as a receiver. So there could be a scenario where the Bengals use the pass rush against the Rams a little bit. And then, we got ourselves a ball game.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is, like you sort of brought it up just now, is the Joe Mixon factor. Because when the Rams played the Niners, they knew the Niners run the ball. So it's like they stopped that. They limited them to, I think, 50 total rushing yards. So it's like that's part of the reason why the Rams were able to win that game. Whereas now you're playing Cincinnati, who have such an elite passing attack with Burrow and Boyd and Chase and Higgins and all these guys, where it's like now you need to worry about the passing game. It's like, are you going to ignore Joe Mixon, who is a very talented runner and, exactly like you said, very good in the passing game too? And just to cut off my take here, we got an interception by the Baylor safety. I believe that's Petrie, if I remember correctly. I'm going to look it up just to make sure.
Number 8, it's Petrie.
But Jalen Petrie, yes, the defensive back out of Baylor, came up with a huge pick there. Actually, no, it's number 9.
No, that's not Petrie.
Number 9.
That's JT Woods.
JT Woods. Okay, I don't have him on my list here, I think. Oh, no, here it is. JT Woods. Okay. So, pick off there by Bailey Zappi. I think this game is pretty much in hand now. We got 19 seconds left. This game is over. But just, jumping back to my take here is just like, I wonder if the Rams are going to ignore Mixon, and he's going to be a huge factor in that offense for the Bengals and, sort of take advantage of the weakness of, the Rams are sort of weak in the rushing game department on the defensive side. So, if Mixon can take advantage of that, I like the Bengals to sort of keep up with the Rams. I think the Rams have sort of hit this sort of, they've gotten into a cycle of being able to put points on the board. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is dangerous, but Odell Beckham is a lot more comfortable in that offense. If Higbee comes back and he's healthy, then, he's going to be a factor as well. Van Jefferson's a very underrated receiver in that offense. That running game has gotten so much better with Cam Akers and, Darrell Henderson Jr. and Funk as well, Sonny Michel. They have lots of great pieces on offense. So, if it's going to be a track meets type of game, the key factor is just if Joe Mixon can establish himself. Because I agree with you guys, the defensive line for the Rams is going to capture Burrow, but he was able to beat Tennessee, but that was because Ryan Tannehill sort of, gifted the game to them with a couple interceptions there. And that's a possibility that we may see from Stafford too. He has been prone to throw interceptions too, especially in crucial moments when it sort of hurts them. So I'm most likely picking the Rams to win this game too, but yeah, I'm pulling for the Bengals. I think it's actually going to be a lot closer than both you guys think with the blowout there, 27-17. I'm thinking it's actually going to be closer to 24-17. So that's the way that I like it.
A whole 3 points closer than my prediction.
It makes a difference. It makes a difference.
I agree with you. And I think the one thing that gets a little bit lost is Ramsey's a stud. We all know that. Sort of half the field is removed. Ramsey is Ramsey. But the rest of that Rams secondary is questionable. And when you put together Jamar Chase and Higgins and Boyd, there's a problem, on the back end there for the Rams. And
because that's another reason the Rams were able to beat the Niners, because they don't have those weapons in the passing game. Like, yeah, they have Kittle, but they're using Debo as a running back mainly. So it's like, if you don't have to worry about that passing threat, then of course you're going to be able to stay in the game. But yeah, exactly like I said, with the Bengals having that much more dangerous receivers, you wonder what are they going to focus on, stopping those receivers or stopping Joe Mixon, and that could be a huge factor for sure. But yeah, continue with your take, Jamal.
No, and then I think the key is when you start getting in the Rams into pressure situations, what's going to happen? I mean, look, guys, let's keep it real here. They played Tampa Bay JV, with with what Brady had left on that roster.
They still almost lost.
And they still almost won the game
because of that secondary.
And didn't know what side of the bed to wet. I mean, let's keep it real here. Almost took that game away. And then when you look at the Niners, I mean, God bless Jimmy G, but there's a reason Jimmy G's on his way out. So the Rams have kind of caught some breaks here, in terms of who they've drawn, and still only won those games by 3 points apiece. I'm not yet convinced of them under pressure situations with Stafford, with McVay, and with that team. If the Bengals keep it close, guys, Burrow is a different kind of dude, okay? And if this is a close game in the fourth quarter and you ask me, do you want Stafford or do you want Burrow? I want Burrow every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
That might be a little bit of a hot take.
I'm gonna back him up on that one. I agree.
Well, like I said, a little bit of a hot take, because I agree. I think Burrow's played in some key situations. He's obviously won a national championship at LSU on the grandest stage there, but it's just like,
real quick, is everyone forgetting the fact that Stafford gifted the game to whatever his first name is?
Jaquiski Tart, yes.
Yeah. And that if Tart actually had hands, that game would be completely different. Like, everyone's seemingly forgetting that was literally a gift.
That's true.
Breaking down from the heavens.
That's true. That's true. It's very true.
Oh, no, I'm with Jamal on this one. Yeah, I'm Burrow over Stafford.
As I said, it's a slight hot take. It's like a lukewarm take. All right, fellas, the Senior Bowl has concluded. I mean, we had a lot of great draft conversation. Finished it up with some Super Bowl conversation. Make sure you guys, all the viewers out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you follow all of the handles that you see below. You got my personal handle, I'm Decide 23. You got Tad's Decide 94. The show handle, Decide, guys. And our friends, obviously, at the Drafted Session podcast. You got Jamal's at LAFB Jams. And thank you so much for Will joining earlier. He had to leave a little bit earlier, so we got Will, LAFB Network. Jamal, it was really great to have you on. Lots of great draft conversation. And, Will sort of teased us a little bit with what stuff they got planned for your guys' podcast. But can you give us any more insider on what's coming up on the podcast for you guys?
First of all, Amar, Tad, thank you guys so much for allowing me to be part of this. You guys are a magical combination, and we're so grateful at LAFB to have you guys. You guys are real treasures in terms of your football knowledge, in terms of people. So first of all, just really grateful that you guys thought of us to join you guys. What a blast and so much fun this was.
It was a given. I told Tad, I was like, there's this new draft podcast. We're doing a draft live stream. They got to come on. So thank you is on your side. Thanks for coming on. That's the biggest thing for sure.
We got some fun things cooking up here on Radio Row in the Super Bowl. We may be heading down to UCLA this week to kind of catch Bengals while they're going to be at UCLA and maybe kind of sneak in some conversation,
scouting reports, some interviews. Okay, nice.
And kind of do some interesting.
Wow.
So stay tuned with us. We got some exciting things happening, and then
of course, our great Super Bowl watch party at Surfridge in El Segundo.
Right.
Folks, join us, please, out there. We're going to have a great time and kind of do a pregame pod there as well at Surfridge. Great people, great beer. And so I think it's a big week for LAFB, and it's going to be a big year for LAFB as well. And all thanks to guys like you. So thanks again for having me. Really appreciate it, guys.
Hey,
No,
I say guys like us, man. Like I'm so happy to have you on here because again, I'm so not confident in my draft analysis. So I was like, is this the thing?
You are the man.
Having guys like you will be like absolutely like you guys are draft experts. I cannot wait to for more episodes of the podcast to start dropping as it keeps on going. So thanks for sticking with us, buddy. Dude, today was so much fun. I loved it. It was great. So we're gonna do it again. I don't know when, I don't know how, but we're repeating this experience.
We'll figure it out for sure. But yeah, just like Jamal said, this is a huge week for the network. We got the Super Bowl coverage. We got a lot of guys going to be on Radio Row. Looks like we may have some people checking out the Bengals there for scouting reports of interviews. That seems super awesome. So yeah, make sure you're staying tuned with everything that's happening with the LAFB network. Just check us out on the website, all the various handles, the YouTube, we got the podcast stuff, the Twitter, every single social media outlet. But just, yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to our live stream. Wish you all guys a really great rest of your day.